Inside the Birds is back. Good morning, everybody. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. Welcome to Inside the Birds Live, presented by DraftKings here at Pinot's Palette in Cherry Hill. I'm your host, Jeff Mosher, alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Kaplan. Joining us, as always, the usual suspects. We've got former Eagles Pro Bowl left tackle Trey Thomas.
Yes.
And, of course, our Zen master of tape breakdown, Greg Cosell. How you guys doing today?
I am fantastic.
It's beginning to look a lot like Easter outside, right?
Yeah.
Nice, seasonably warm.
Good day for football.
Now, Greg's already worried about the imminent snow that we'll have on Tuesday or Wednesday?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll dig you out. Don't worry, we got you. If you like wine and you like painting, this is the place to be. Check out pinotspalette.com/cherryhill. It is the business owned by Trey and his wife, Rosa, and we appreciate them, of course, for giving us the studio to use today. If you like this show, if you're watching the show, please hit like on YouTube, hit share on Twitter, hit whatever it does that makes this thing go viral. We appreciate it, but definitely give us a like. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave us a question or a comment, and we will do our best to answer it. I've got the Google Doc right here, and our fellows from Rebel Hill will help me out on that. I can say with certainty that we will not be seeing this week the same thing over and over and over again, because the Eagles are making a change at quarterback. Carson Wentz is on the bench. Jalen Hurts will make his NFL starting debut, rookie second-round pick. So we've got a lot to talk about, and it's all happening against a white-hot New Orleans Saints team. The Giants are hot, but not as hot. Not as hot as the Saints.
4 in a row.
Who have the NFC's best record. Agree or I mean, people can kind of levy out blame how they want to, whether it's GM, whether it's head coach, whether it's quarterback. But I at least feel that this is a move that makes some sense, that you just needed to change some things up. And I'm not putting everything on Carson as well, but at this point, I think we've talked week after week about what's going to change, and nothing really has. So here we are. Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback.
Yeah, Jeff, it was time. The team needed a boost, or the so-called spark, as Doug Pederson said. They could have done it a couple weeks ago, but they did it now. You'd rather do it against the lesser opponent, but Saints right now are arguably playing the best defense of any NFL team. I'm looking forward to it because I love the unknown. In this case, it's actually a good thing based on the way the Eagles' offense is prepared. The Saints may think they're getting one thing. We'll see if the Eagles' coaches give them what they think they're going to get, and I find this game interesting today. It's a game where you might get what we saw from Jalen Hurts in college, but the guy's got an arm, and I saw this when I was in training camp for 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Eagles coaches do with Jalen Hurts today, and who is going to be his primary target. You just don't know that, so this is what I love about the unknown.
A lot of questions left to be answered. Trey, I was trying to figure out from your player standpoint, like a relatable situation, but you were never benched, as far as I remember, playing for the Eagles. So I can't. And I would make the argument. I would also make the argument. It was like when you didn't play that people realized how valuable you were. Whether it was that Monday night game or Sunday night game we all remember, or even 2005 when you got hurt and some rookies had to take your place there. Yeah. So I don't know how you would personally relate, but how do you view the situation?
Well, it's something that I hope Carson just takes a step back and just can kind of learn from it. That's one of the things that Hurst was able to kind of take that 30,000 range that Doug was saying, that the view from the game, where now you can step back and just see, all right, this is how the game is going to be played. All right, it has to be a relief for Carson. Of course, you want to be out there and battle with you guys, battle with your players, but it seems like, from what I hear, how practice was, where he was out there trying to do, play the role of Taysom Hill, and, he's scrambling around out there on the field and giving everybody a good look. You know what? He took it all in stride, and let's see how the Hurst is going to be able to take over this thing.
We'll see. What is that comfortable cruising altitude for airplanes? Is it 10,000? Is it 30,000?
It's 30,000.
It's 30,000.
It's 30,000 and above.
Okay, so hopefully Carson right now is at 30,000, just kind of getting a view from
My guess
from
is
above.
he's not relieved. My guess is he's pissed.
Yeah,
That would be my guess.
You would hope he would be.
Yeah, I don't think he's relieved.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not. But I think there's something to be said for him, though, taking a step back and viewing it. And, much like Trey, maybe somehow Carson Wentz winds up looking better after all this, although that would take a lot. That would take a really bad dysfunctional offense for Carson to come out of today looking a little bit better. But I do find it interesting. There was a lot of support this week for Carson Wentz in the locker room, as well as support for Jalen. So these things can tend to be polarizing or divide a locker room. It didn't feel that way this week. We'll get into that. I want to get through the injuries real quick because obviously they've been significant for the Eagles this week. The Jason Peters era for this year is over. He's going to go on IR, get that toe taken care of, and we will play the game of will he be back or not, probably sometime next late spring or summer. I tend to think that we've probably seen the last of JP as an Eagle.
Well, as a player, but you know what?
Yes, as a player.
I've heard, and we've talked about this before, that he actually is interested in getting into scouting, potentially after his career is over. So, the last I had heard, checking to someone who's close to him, is he was not ruled out coming back for one more year, obviously, wherever he wants to play. But the fact of the matter is, they're moving on from Jason Peters, and it'll be Nate Herbig at right guard today. And Nate Herbig, Jeff, we had mentioned this several weeks ago. You worry about his weight. Because he looked heavy. Like, I'm going back 4 to 6 weeks ago. I don't know what his weight is exactly, but that's something to keep an eye on in terms of technique and how he moves around today.
All right, we will monitor that. Alshon Jeffrey missed some practice earlier in the week, but he is available to play. Sounds like Fletcher Cox will be available to play,
Yep,
so that's good news. Derek Barnett had a pelvis injury. That I don't know if that always makes me wince when you hear about a guy having a pelvis injury.
He'll be able to play today, though. He'll be active. And look, T.J. Edwards is out. No,
even if they said hip, I wouldn't feel it, but pelvis just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yes, that's not easy to do that. But T.J. Edwards is out again with a hamstring injury. Yeah, so they are down. We'll talk about some of the roster moves they've had. So they're down a couple linebackers. Obviously, Nate Gary's not going to return this season after his foot surgery, but that one is a little bit of an issue. And then Darius Slay expected to play with his knee injury. This is 2 injuries now. The calf injury is off the injury report, and now he's got a new one, the knee injury, which he saw from last week. And Michael Jacquet is out this week, Jeff.
So the starters who have not stayed healthy the last 2 games, and that's talking about Slay and Maddox, now really have to stay healthy because who is the top backup outside corner if Michael Jacquet can't play? Would it be Jalen Mills moving back outside?
I would think so, yeah. I would think so because I don't think they have any other choices. They brought a kid off the practice squad who's not played in an NFL game before, so that's going to be a little bit tougher.
They did play Roby Coleman on the outside for a couple of weeks.
They did that weeks ago, yeah. How did that work out, by the way, when he did it?
It worked out okay in those games. I forget which.
I think it was Baltimore, Greg, that they played against, and he got away with it against a shorter.
It was a little. I think it might have been more recent, but
okay.
I mean, he's played. They have done that. We'll see. That would make them really small outside against a big receiving core.
Absolutely, you're right. I think it was the Giants game. I think about that he had to do that. And last but not least, Rudy Ford remains out. So again, the special teams safety not going to be able to play. We flipped the script. It sounds like Taysom Hill will go again today for the Saints. He's definitely the quarterback.
Breeze is on IR. He didn't even practice this week. So yeah.
Latavius Murray. What do we know about Murray?
Yeah, he has a knee injury. He'll play today. Michael Thomas, he's going to play with his high ankle sprain. He just continues to play with it. You might remember Marquez Callaway, who had been starting for him. He was put on injured reserve with a knee injury. And then you'd asked me about Deontay Harris. I believe he's going to be able to play.
Yeah. No, he was announced as being out last night.
Was he out because he was questionable unless they downgraded?
He did not make the trip.
He did make the trip. Okay, all right. That's an update. Oh, you saw that. Okay.
Yeah, I wrote it down and then I read it.
Thank you, sir.
No.
He's one of those.
He actually practiced more this week than he did in the last 4 weeks.
I did see last night. I don't think I misread it. I think he did not make the trip.
So I'll take Greg's word for it. So he's out. That hurts their special teams returns.
It does.
Malcolm Brown's out, who's in part of their D-tackle rotation.
Sure.
Marcus Davenport's back from his concussion. And Janoris Jenkins will play. He's back from 1 week being out with his knee injury. And then Patrick Robinson will not play.
Yeah, he went on IR, I believe.
Yeah. So the Saints get a few guys, lose a few guys.
Well, Robinson started last week, played 6 snaps, and then got hurt and did not play the rest of the game.
Was it the re-aggravation of the hamstring?
I don't know, but they put him on IR.
Yeah, so the question is, Greg, how much of an impact at all would Patrick Robinson make now Jenkins is back, had he been healthy?
Well, if Jenkins is the starter opposite Lattimore, so Robinson would not have played on the outside.
No, so who's their top backup outside guy? Is it one of the Williams?
It'll be P.J. Williams, who if everybody is healthy. In other words, if Jenkins and Lattimore are the outside corners, then P.J. Williams plays safety in their dime. That's what they do. Because Gardner Johnson, who's one of the absolute best slot corners in the game, is their slot corner.
It hurts me to hear you say that because I really thought that the Eagles would have been a nice match made in heaven for them last year in the draft.
With C.J. Gardner-Johnson?
I just thought he was the type of player they really needed in their secondary.
Yeah,
they decided
I mean, we'll get into this more, but they play out of a sub-defense about 90% of their defensive snaps.
Kind of like the Packers, right?
Yep, so C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he does not come off the field.
All right. We mentioned the Jason Peters going on IR. From a transaction standpoint, we had the Eagles signing a few players. Cornerback Kevon Seymour goes to the practice squad. They elevated linebacker Rashad Smith and cornerback Jamison Houston from the practice squad. Now, Houston is a guy who's only been with the team for a couple of weeks.
Right.
So he's one of those guys that may have to be forced into action just because
it's
of
interesting
injuries.
you mentioned Seymour. Because I remember him coming out of USC, and I thought he had a chance to play in the league. He's been with a few teams. I don't remember my exact evaluation of him, but I just do remember thinking that he had a chance to play in the league as a corner. He was an outside corner in college, so who knows with the situation today.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll see. I mean, I think it's safe to say, much like we said with Brett Toth many weeks ago,
right.
If he's in the game, it's not a good thing for the Eagles. No offense to him, it just means a lot of guys got hurt and a lot of key positions. As I mentioned, it is unseasonably warm today, which is probably, I don't know if that's great. I think the Eagles would like to welcome a dome team like the Saints in December into a very cold and frosty atmosphere, but that's not going to happen. Why don't we get an update from our resident weatherman here, Tropical Storm Kaplan? What do we got?
Yeah, it's actually going to be mid-50s and very little wind, and that is football weather, man. In December, can you believe this?
I like that Iowa-Wisconsin game where you see the snow coming
And
down.
I watched some of that game.
That
was a
That
fun
was
game.
fun.
The Colorado game, too.
Yeah, that was good stuff. All right, please remember, give us a share, a like, a retweet, leave a question or a comment. We already start to see a few comments and some questions that, of course, we will get to regarding the Eagles. We're going to work a little bit backwards as we start off the show and kind of start about Jalen Hurts and then get into the more of the discussion on Carson, what's going to come out of this, and, of course, with Doug Pederson. Hurts was picked 53rd overall. I think everybody here, unless you're living in a cave, remembers that when he was picked, it was kind of a shock to the solar plexus for a lot of Eagles fans. It was met with plenty of skepticism. There was a thought process that, and Adam, you talked about it the day they drafted him, on using him not just as a backup quarterback, but in a multifaceted role that might remind people of the way the Saints used Taysom Hill when Drew Brees is healthy. But it never really worked out that way. We saw the offense had a lot of dysfunction, a lot of issues. Jalen Hurts was in and out. There was really never any rhythm or established. So last week he goes in for Carson Wentz as the quarterback, completes 5 of 12 passes for 109 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Greg, I'll start with you. I know you've looked at what you saw in a very brief, showing there as the quarterback. Tell me what you saw.
It would be exactly what I would have expected. For the most part, he would drop back and he'd hit that back foot, and if the throw was there, such as the throw to Rager, the 34-yarder on the fade, he threw it. If it was not there with the primary read, he would take off. And he had some good runs. I would expect a lot of that today, by the way. And he would take off. The touchdown he threw to Ward was a classic example of that. The result turned out to be great, but he dropped back. There was no pressure on him whatsoever. He never planted his back foot. He just took off. And like I said, the result was positive. You know, there's a really fine balance, and this is really about quarterback play overall. There's a very fine balance with quarterbacks who can move around, because very often there's two things that happen. One, they tend to leave some throws on the field because they leave too soon. But the other part of that is they also don't force a lot of throws. So those quarterbacks often tend not to throw a lot of interceptions. So it's a definite balance. So the question is, and I've had this conversation with a lot of coaches, is how do you coach that? And a lot of coaches tend to believe that if a quarterback leaves early, that while they don't love it, if he makes good plays after that, they kind of let it go because that's sort of built into his DNA. Jalen Hurts, he didn't grow up in the same way the Tom Brady's or the Drew Breeses grow up playing quarterback. They don't grow up thinking, I have to get the ball out of my hands. They grow up with, I'm as good, if not better, than any other player on the field athletically. So if I don't see exactly what I want to see, or if I don't get a clear picture, I know that my legs can work. And they can be really effective. So very often that's what happens. And there's a balance there, and it's a play-by-play thing. You know, to me, it's a hard deal. You know, I'm a little older, so I'm a little bit more of a purist. I like to see, as I think most quarterback coaches and OCs would like in an ideal world, I like to see the quarterback throw the football when it's there. But, you know, I think you'll probably see Jalen Hurts move around a bit today, and he may make some good plays.
Greg, has that changed the way when you evaluate quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Does that change the way you look at quarterbacks and you say, you know what, this is part of his game?
Yes.
How so?
Because I think in today's NFL, you have to think of it this way. Defenses now, because there's so much nickel, 5 DBs, dime, 6 DBs, even what we call dollar, some teams play with 7 DBs at times, is there's so much speed on defense. So blitz packages and pressure schemes now have players who are much faster and better athletes than offensive linemen. Sorry, Trey.
It's okay.
So what happens is...
We got the studio for a couple more weeks.
I know. I don't want him to attack me while I'm talking. So what happens is there are going to be plays in which the defense wins in terms of tactically.
Right.
And the quarterback at some point is going to have to be able to move. Now, move is a relative term. You don't have to just run around frenetically and chaotically.
Right.
You know, move can be move within the pocket, you know, an area, let's say, the size of a boxing ring or a little smaller, or move can be truly get out of the pocket.
Right.
And there's, look, I had a great conversation this past summer with Dean Pease, who was a defensive coordinator in the league for years and years. And he told me that when you play some quarterbacks, that there's really 2 parts to defense. There's the first 2 seconds, and then there's what happens after.
Right.
And so there's no question that there's value in being able to move. It just gets back to what the balance is. Are you leaving throws on the field, or are you making great plays? Can you do both? You know, in some kind of balance that's effective. There's no. I don't think that's a mathematical equation. I don't think it's absolutely quantifiable.
Right.
And one final point, I remember having a conversation with the quarterback coach, the wide receivers coach for the Seahawks a few years ago at the scouting combine, and I asked him about this with Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson, and I'm sure some of it's a function of being under 5'11", but he leaves throws on the field. He has his whole career, because there are times I'm sure he can't see. And I said to him, you know, how do you guys handle that? And he said, well, if he makes a good play, we say, good play, Russell. You know, so I think, you know, I think that, you know, that comes down now to coaching philosophy.
Right.
And how you want to deal with that.
Now,
Trey,
the problem,
go
the
ahead.
thing that I see, though, when you're going up against the New Orleans Saints and with Hurts and knowing that he can move around in the pocket, this defense layers their rushes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wrote that. I wanted to get.
Oh, okay, all right, my bad.
I want to save that for some real.
I don't want to jump into it. Then.
Yeah, because I
That's a
do want
great
to ask you
point,
real
though.
quick.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Trust me, it's in the script.
Okay, all right. Stick to the script.
I wanted to ask you just from a player standpoint. Doug Pederson made the mention that when Jalen came in, there was a little bit of a boost. You know, he threw the touchdown pass, then they got a punt return for a touchdown. The defense made like 2 stops in a row before they gave up the long run. And I couldn't figure out if those are just like, let's call it a boost. Like, does a punt return and a couple of defensive stops, did you really attribute that to the change in quarterback, or does that just what happened in the course of a game and it's easy to put it all under that umbrella?
Well, maybe when you see that, you know, whoa, they just took Wentz, they just bench Wentz. That's almost like putting a pneumonia cap under one of these players' noses. You know, it kind of made everybody wake up a little bit and their eyes get a little wide, because right after that you saw a big special teams hit where a guy came down, I'm not sure who he was, came down, made a nice hit on the special teams. And then you start seeing her start move around. It just seems like the energy did pick up a little bit on this team, and I don't know if it was just a shock to everybody's system to see that, whoa, they actually bench Wentz, so maybe I need to step my game up a little bit. So I don't want to have that happen to me. So I don't know if that was the actual spark, but it did seem like that team did kind of pick it up a notch.
All right, well, we'll see today if they continue to pick it up because of the change.
One other thing about talking about quarterbacks that move, and I know Trey can certainly talk to this better than I can. One potential negative of quarterbacks that move too soon is it hurts offensive linemen, hurts pass protection.
That's in the script too.
Okay.
But go, no, make your point.
So we'll let Trey talk
it's
about
a valid point. I want you to go.
We'll let Trey talk about that later.
More.
But that's the other issue, because obviously every play call is structured, and the offensive line pass protects in a given way based on the play call and the protection call. And if the quarterback moves when he doesn't need to move, you know, one thing we always talk about is some quarterbacks move into sacks. They create their own pressure, and then the offensive line gets blamed, and it has nothing to do with the offensive line.
You know, it's interesting. The Seahawks brought in Brian Schottenheimer because of what you just said, because Russell Wilson not sometimes, he does it quite often, where the play's designed it one way and then he moves.
Right.
And he runs around. And You can't keep asking your offensive line to hold the ball in 4 to 5 seconds. You just can't.
No.
You can't hold a block like that.
And they block based on the quarterback being in a certain spot based on the play call.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing.
And if it's not there, you do get concerned about that. So I'm looking forward to watching that today, but as Trey's talking about, the Saints defense is so good. There's so many different things that they do, and Greg's talking about like they're having a sub-package just about on every play. This tactical challenge for the Eagles coach is going to be interesting today, whether they're going to rise to the occasion or not.
One thing you and I have talked about on the podcast, and I don't think it's probably going to get a lot of attention, but really needs to, in a situation like this, where what you guys are referring to as far as the timing of the offense and the offensive line and getting a feel for the quarterback and his receivers, is that the new COVID rules keep you out of the facility altogether on Monday and Tuesday. So there was no extra work on the field Monday and Tuesday. There was no ability for the line or for Jalen and Hurts and the receivers to spend a few more minutes after practice working on rhythm and routes and things like that. There was none of that. So they really only had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which, I know when you're a backup forced in, those are your big days anyway, but any extra opportunity that you would normally have to be able to establish something, not there this year.
Right.
And I think that obviously hurts.
Plus, you're talking about, one coach told me that their quarterbacks miss between 300 and 400 snaps in the offseason. This includes May, June, OTAs. If you're a rookie quarterback, rookie minicamp, okay? Then you go of training camp where you're missing all those snaps. It's cut way down. Oh, by the way, training preseason, 4 preseason games.
Right.
You can't make that up.
Right.
It's going to be hard.
So Greg referenced kind of a mixed bag, what you saw out of Jalen Hurts in his first appearance, some really nice throws, also some guys that he didn't see or just missed because he ran. And thanks to our friends at Leverage Studios, we were able to go inside the film from last week's game and highlight what you really saw from Jalen Hurts. So let's take a look at all of what we saw from Jalen Hurts last week against the Packers. Jalen Hurts makes his NFL starting debut today after the rookie took over for a benched Carson Wentz against the Packers. Hurts showed some positives against Green Bay, along with some areas needing improvement. Let's start with one of his best overall plays, a great read and throw to Jalen Reagor on his first attempt. The read is the key here, as the Packers show blitz with a linebacker creeping into the B gap and a safety coming into the box. Hurts knows he'll have a one-on-one on the outside and sees the press coverage on Reagor to his left. Late movement by the deep safety Adrian Amos tips to Hurts that the blitz will be coming from Hurts' left side, leaving Reagor's man with single coverage and no help. The Packers actually don't blitz. It's a manufactured pressure with a defensive back coming as the fourth rusher and everyone else dropping back. But Hurts had already beaten the disguise by recognizing the one-on-one. He takes a 3-step drop, shows a quick trigger, and throws an accurate lead pass down the sideline where only Reagor can catch the ball for a 34-yard pickup. 2 plays later, Hurts shows that he needs to be more patient in the pocket and throw with anticipation. It's 2nd and 22, and the Packers will blitz this time, a 6-man rush bringing a DB and a linebacker, which will create opportunities on the outside for both John Hightower on an out and Alshon Jeffrey on a post corner. Miles Sanders stays in pass protection to give Hurts enough time. The easy throw is Hightower, who's got plenty of cushion and can pick up half the yardage needed for a first down. But the better play is Jeffrey. Hurts needs to see the deep safety play the crosser, leaving Jeffrey to break outside and stack the corner near the 25. A strong anticipation throw gives Jeffrey a chance to make a bigger play than a tuck and run, which picks up just 3 yards. Hurts' touchdown came on 4th and forever, but showed the quarterback's ability to keep his eyes downfield when he's out of the pocket. The Packers have everyone backed up, but still force Hurts from the pocket when Rashawn Gary edges rookie right tackle Jack Driscoll. But Hurts doesn't just tuck and run or even flip to Boston Scott in the flat. He's got his eyes downfield, watching Greg Ward's deep over develop in front of the end zone. Hurts sees the opening and makes a nice toss to the near corner of the end zone, past the corner and safety to where only Ward can catch it for the touchdown. Late in the 4th, the Eagles have another chance to get into the end zone and make it a one-possession game. It's 1st and 10 at Green Bay's 33. The Packers only rush 4 and drop everyone else back. Once again, Doug Pederson's play call gives Hurts mostly... All right, as always, a big thanks to our friends from Leverage Studios for that professional telestration. They do a great job. Thank you again to Leverage Studios. Greg made a point before we watched the video, and you saw it in the video. And Trey,
it's going to be my only one of the day. I'm done. I'm done for the day.
You're being paid by word.
I was going to say, if that happens, we might as well just fold up the shop right now.
Yeah, I don't think we can afford them anymore.
But you made the point when you were on with Adam and I during the week on Inside the Birds TV. You saw a decent amount of playing time, but what you saw can't be necessarily the full summation of what Jalen Hurts is.
No.
No practice, thrown into the middle of the game. So even some of the plays that we saw, Trey, where he did not see the open guy, it doesn't mean that that's the kind of quarterback he is and will be for a while. In fact, I think that you have a week of practice, you can probably work and fine-tune some of those things. Absolutely.
You're going to go in there and you're going to look at the film and you're going to be like, hey, look, these are the other options that you had. I know we just threw you in there in a situation where you just saw Carson get his head knocked off 4 times. He was sacked 4 times. I'm not even sure how many hits he took in that game. But 4 sacks, so now you say, all right, you know what? You get in there, protection is breaking down. They just took JP out of the game as well, so you have a guard now that's coming in with Nate Herbig that's just being thrown into the game. So, of course, he's going to get out there and like, all right, you know what? It's not there. I'm going to go ahead and just try to make something happen with my legs. Get upfield. I don't want to take a sack, even though he ended up giving up 3 sacks in that game. But, I think that he was stepping into this game, his process was rushed a little bit more just because, you're going in the middle of the third quarter. Yeah. And you just you don't want to make too many mistakes at this point.
And this week was supposed to be about helping the game slow down for him as much as possible.
You're game planning specifically for him this week.
Oh, right.
Yeah. That's a whole different animal.
Yeah. The problem is the Saints are also.
Right, but that's... I'm not saying it's irrelevant as an offensive staff, who you're playing. Obviously, it's always relevant who you're playing. But you have to look at what you believe Jalen Hurts' strengths are, and then also what you believe he can't do right now. And you have to play to his strengths. It's as simple as, it's obviously simple to say, but that's what you have to do. Because there are certain things he can do, and there's other things you'd feel a little uncomfortable with asking him to do right now, just because he doesn't have any experience.
So really quick, because our first question coming from Kawan F8 on YouTube is, will Hurts be able to go through his progressions, or will it be one read and throw? And I find that to be a difficult question right now to answer without other than just a few snaps against the Packers.
Here's why that's a difficult question to answer. Because when people talk about progressions, that's thrown out just as gospel. There's a ton of throws in the NFL where there is not a progression. It's a one read. It's based on the design. Let's say, here, I'll give you an example. And you see teams do this all the time, and I think people will be able to visualize this. To the short side of the field, the boundary side of the field, there's a route concept that is in every team's playbook, and literally every team runs it almost every week. It's a slant flat. So in other words, you have a receiver, it's this boundary receiver, he's the receiver to the short side of the field, and you have a running back who's offset to that side. And it's a 2-man route combination. The back runs to the flat, the wide receiver runs a slant. It's a slant-flat combination. It's a one read for the quarterback. There is an underneath defender to that side, not the corner, the underneath defender who's more inside. If at the snap of the ball he expands, you throw the slant. If at the snap of the ball he stays inside, you throw it to the flat. It's a one read throw.
Sure.
Okay, so when people just say, can he go through his progression? It depends on what the route concept is. It depends on down and distance. It depends on so many factors. Not every throw in a game is a big 3 progression read throw.
No, but hold that thought, because I do want to talk about Doug's offense and what he might be doing today with Jalen Hurts.
They're going to be doing a lot of what I just said. Not that exact, maybe not that exact route combination, although it will be in, but they're going to try to do those kinds of things.
Right.
Why didn't they do it with Carson?
Oh, that was where I was going.
Why didn't they do that with Carson and make it so simple?
That's a whole other question, and we could probably talk about that for 3 hours.
I do want to get to that, and that's also something we will get to. Adam, really quick, we should probably address this early now, because it's already started with the future of Carson Wentz. What are they going to do if Hurts plays well? What does that mean for Wentz?
Of course. I get it.
Go ahead.
No, look, first of all, they're locked into Wentz next year with his contract. You can't trade it. They're not going to trade him.
You don't think he's tradable?
No, not for 21.
Interesting.
Based on the dead money that would hit. And remember, the cap's going to go down.
You mean the dead money for the Eagles if they trade him?
Yes.
Like,
significant amount of
I
dead
didn't
money.
interrupt you, but I'm just curious because I don't follow this
ton
like
of
you
dead
do.
money.
If they trade him, how much?
I don't have it. It's
like 30-something
I think
million?
it's $32 million.
Yeah.
So that would still count on the Eagles' salary cap if they trade him.
Proration, yes.
Now,
yes.
let me ask you, though,
Yeah.
just because the Eagles have been creative in the past and they don't always have the same philosophy as other teams, if they decided they wanted to go forward with Jalen Hurts, and I'm just throwing out a hypothetical
he plays
here,
lights out for 4
but
games?
you're talking about a quarterback who makes less than $1.5 million, I believe. So
that's not in
you
their
can
thought
say,
process.
we got dead money, but
Their thought process now is just have Wentz take a step back. I strongly believe Hurts, barring something unforeseen, will start the final 4 games.
right.
Let him take a step back. We're talking about Carson Wentz right now. Let him take a step back, Jeff. Let him clear his head. Just get him into the offseason, and then the question is who's going to be coaching him. We all know, we said it all season, the coaching's got to be better with his quarterback. The Eagles front office and the owners, they've got to figure out what they're going to do with the coaches. No matter who comes back, they've got to do a better job of doing it. They've got to embrace this offseason, so does Carson Wentz, about how he's going to be coached. Because that's the thing now. He's regressed so significantly. You don't know where he is as a quarterback, Jeff, anymore. That's where they have to be, and they have to be honest with themselves. Right now, it's a problem.
What if Carson wants out? Because that's my thing. Because, I mean, I look at it where, here you are. If Hurts starts these last 4 games and he plays well, then now you have another situation where you have the whole nother quarterback controversy.
Now, that would be a controversy.
I'm thinking that at this point right now, I'm thinking Carson is probably thinking, you know what, I want to get out of here. Just because you just got over the Foles, now you have the Hurts thing, and now you have another season where you're going to have to answer these questions and questions all over again. I would almost say, you know what? Send me to Indianapolis.
Well, it does register with me that he might be thinking, well, they want to bring in this guy and that guy to quote unquote repair me or help me rebuild me. But who is that guy? As he sits here right now,
You're talking about a coach?
Sure
Yeah, I mean, it's a
I'm talking about Carson. What he's thinking
first
about
of
who
all,
they're bringing in.
It's a complete rebuild. This is not a fix.
Right.
This is a rebuild from starting with footwork and working up to his head and getting his head right. They have to find someone. Look, the structure, let's call it like it is. The structure of the way they coach his quarterback did not work the last 2 seasons. Why do we know that? Because we have the results.
Right.
Okay? They need to go out and find somebody, and they need to do their homework and find coaches who have developed quarterbacks before and have a history of doing it. I don't care if it's someone older. Just find these coaches who've done it.
This comes from a lot of coaches, veteran coaches I've talked to over the years, because I've been doing this a long time, so I know a lot of coaches who've coached in the league for a long time. And one thing that head coaches, offensive coaches will talk about is when you have a high draft choice quarterback who clearly is talented. We've seen those traits. We don't have to guess as to Carson Wentz's talent. Right. What they've always told me is this: it's the job of the entire organization, not just a coach, not just an OC or whatever. It's the job of the entire organization to make sure that quarterback plays at the highest level possible. And what I'm always told is when that doesn't happen, that's an organizational failure. That's what I'm told. So, you can couch it any way you want. You have a high-level traits quarterback who, in the minds of most, probably in terms of traits, is top 5 in the league and is now playing as a bottom 3rd quarterback in the league. So that's an organizational failure.
Right, always going to be more than just one thing. In that
Well,
situation.
yeah. I'm not saying it's this guy's fault or this guy, but it's a failure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. You talked about Doug Pederson's offense, and what stuck out to me, just watching the Packers game, in particular paying close attention to when Hurts was in, was that it didn't seem to me like much was changed. And I know you can't change a whole lot because, you're making the move to a quarterback, but Trey, he had to know in the back of his mind that there was probably a good chance he was going to be going to Jalen Hurts in that game. I mean, thought it was going to happen the week before. They managed to hang around there. If you know Jalen Hurts, if you feel strongly that if my quarterback's going to continue to struggle, I'm going to have to go put the backup in, do you not have a few play calls specifically for that guy to be in the game?
But what are you going to change? At the end of the day, your playbook is your playbook. I mean, it is what it is.
So you're saying today's offense is going to look just like the last
I'm
6
pretty
or 7
sure
weeks?
it's gonna. You might have a couple more little 3-step reads, something that's going to be like Greg was saying, like a 1-step, 1 read progression or whatever. You get the ball out of his hands a little quicker. You're going to tell him, all right, you know what? I'm thinking what they're going to do is you're going to bring those receivers and tight ends in a little bit more to help chip some of these defensive ends, to give him a little bit more time to be able to see what's going on out there on that field. But, I don't think the offense is going to change as much. You might say, all right, you know what, we want to call a couple more rollout plays. Well, they're going to be on to that because that was a big emphasis a couple weeks ago going into Seattle. And then you saw what Seattle did to change it up. They told their defensive ends on the backside of it, stay disciplined and rush upfield. Now, this defense, New Orleans, is extremely disciplined. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to be able to go out there and just fool them with this little, all right, well, we know what, we're going to try to do some couple play action rollouts. All right.
Right.
You might end up seeing Wentz a little earlier than what you expect because this defensive front can get after it.
Well, like Greg, you
You're
always
going
say,
to see more design runs, and maybe you'll see some RPOs more than they normally do.
yeah.
But
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean,
But
as
like
far
you
as
like
their,
to say,
as
third
far as
and
their
eight is
route
third and eight, right?
concepts, you're not going to see brand new route concepts.
Right.
No.
Well, that's what I want
It's
to get
week
into.
14.
Because
It's week 14.
Too late, man.
And you don't have the time to put in it.
Right.
The coach
You're
and all that.
not putting it in on Zoom.
Sure.
No.
Doug's route concept, I think it's fair to say Doug's been very vertical with his route concepts. And that's something I noticed even watching last week, that whether it's 1st and 10 or 3rd and 6, I get it. On 3rd and 8, 4th and 22, you have to throw the ball deep. But I feel like for an offense that has had a lot of trouble protecting the quarterback because of so many different offensive line changes, and then you always kind of build that play fake in, which takes another extra second, that it's been difficult for this offense to function, specifically the quarterback, with protection breakdowns and routes that seemingly take longer to develop because they're very vertical. Is that fair for me to say?
Yeah, you do have times where, like, you'd look at the sacks that came in against Green Bay, where the first sack came in around 2.5 seconds. And it took a little while for the receivers to even, because everybody like, well, Carson, just throw the ball. Mm-hmm. Well, when he puts his back foot down and every receiver still head is facing towards the end zone, who is he going to throw it to? So, and then even on the second sack after that, it was 3rd and whatever it was, and here you are, you wanted to throw the ball,
right.
2.4 seconds protection. You want to give that quarterback at least 2.5 seconds for him to be able to see what's going on and get rid of the ball. But if your receivers are still facing the end zone, like, where are you going to throw the ball?
That's a great point, because I got a call this week, actually on Monday, from someone watching the Eagles tape telling me that. He said, these receivers give Wentz nothing. He said there's no defined time to throw the football. So he's back there, he wants to get rid of it, but there's no one that's giving him an indicator, because they talk about that a lot with receivers. Receivers have to give quarterbacks indicators.
Right.
Because routes are routes. There's not 500 routes. So you've got to give the quarterback an indicator, and the person I spoke to said there's no indicators. He doesn't know when to throw the football, when to turn it loose.
Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
I was going to say, that's a problem that
Hey, you're not fixing that via Zoom.
No. But now to you, Jeff, you and I have talked about on our Inside the Birds podcast that the route combinations, and it's not really us saying, it's people we're talking to who look at Eagles tape and go, what is this thing? Like, how are you helping your quarterback? And Greg just outlined it, and Trey's outlined it as well. This has been an ongoing problem for the play callers. They got to do a better job of helping out.
Like, even take that Green Bay, the touchdown that they threw in the end zone, where it was like a fourth down or whatever. And just the way it was schemed open, where the guy came clear over to the left, and you run all this crossing, guy comes over to the left. It was a natural pick. Bam, there you go, Aaron Rodgers, 4th and whatever it was.
Right,
touchdown. You rarely see us scheme a guy open.
That was
How many
my
times have we
point.
said that?
There was so much soft coverage that the
No.
Packers played,
No,
and
that's-
opportunities.
that's
if
very
there's
fair, by the way.
indicators. I feel like the Packers slanted and short-stuffed the Eagles to death at times, and the Eagles saw similarly soft
Let me
coverages
ask
and
you
didn't
this.
do that.
And I watch tape, you guys know, I'm not just of the Eagles. I'm watching tape of every team, and I've been doing it for a long time. How many times during a game do you watch an Eagles pass play and go, wow, that was a really good concept?
Not very much.
Nah.
And we've said, Jeff, on our show, where are the plays that Sean McVay is running, or Kyle Shanahan, they create space for these guys to get open. They're not asking Deebo Samuel to win on a 9-route every play.
Right.
Okay? Brandon Ayuk, I absolutely love. We all do. Been terrific as a rookie. They scheme these guys to get open with what Trey's talking about. Rub routes.
A couple of weeks ago, they ran
Slants.
one of those.
Go.
You remember the rub route they ran, and it didn't work. I think Rager and somebody ran in, and Carson never pulled the trigger. I feel like since that happened, they have not even tried to do a rub route, which, as you're mentioning, is one of the staples of these.
They do them occasionally, but the way it's going when you look at these other West Coast offenses, which are very progressive, they don't ask the player to do everything like they do here. That's the problem.
Good pass offenses, good offenses as a whole have clear foundational staples that they get to in different ways, but when you watch tape, you go, oh, yeah, that's a flood concept. That's the high-low concept. That's whatever the concept is, and you see it on tape every week with good pass offenses.
What's the Eagles' identity in their passing game?
I'd be
I gotta ask you.
I'd be
See, I
hard
gotta
pressed
ask
to
you.
answer that.
That might be a separate show.
See, Trace a sack.
We're not solving that one on Zoom.
Well,
either.
that's the problem. That's how you sum this up. They don't have an identity of a pass game here.
Right.
That doesn't help the second-round quarterback.
But when you look at when you see some of these top offenses in the game right now, and one of the big things that you hear even throughout the week from the guys that's calling the games, they always talk about during the week in practice how they make the receivers run their routes full speed. Even against the Rams, that was one of the big emphasis. They were like, hey, one thing Sean McVay makes the receivers do, make everybody run the full speed in practice so that the quarterback knows where they're going to be. But when you go in and you hear about the Eagles practicing, oh, it was a light practice, everybody was out there and just helmets and shorts, no one's running full speed.
Right.
Well, that has a lot to do with when it happens in game time.
Yep.
When you have Rager and whoever the running back was on the screen bump into each other in the
Boston
screen.
Scott, yeah.
Boston Scott, because probably in practice he was jogging through it and it worked in practice, but now you get in the game situation, it speeds up a little bit more, and then bam, now you're bumping into each other in the backfield. The play wasn't going to work anyway, but still stuff like that continues to happen throughout the season.
Because it's a timing issue.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like Doug Pederson threw some kerosene on the fire that's been going on all year this week when someone asked him during his press conference what he could do to help Jalen Hurts kind of adjust to in his first NFL start against the Saints. And his answer was quite interesting. In fact, we have a video of it, so I'm going to play it now. Here's Doug Pederson on what he plans to do to get Jalen Hurts more comfortable again in the game today.
In order to get him success, right, you've got to attempt and try to establish a little bit of the run game that helps, and then he can be a part of that, I think, and just go out and maybe try to find some easy completions, right, the quick game or a screen here and there, something that can just kind of get him into the flow of the game. This is the number one defense. It's no easy task. Obviously, he's facing a really good opponent this week. So, it's our job as coaches. It's my job as a play caller to try to help him that way and get into the flow of the game, and we'll see what happens from there.
All right, that was Eagles coach Doug Pederson getting the entire fan base in a tizzy, saying he's going to think about establishing the run and getting that quick game going for Jalen Hurts. Now, I can't describe to you the type of reaction that quote got, especially on social media, where to the point where people constantly were saying, and I could hear almost your voice in my ear as he's talking, saying, "Why are you advertising the game plan 6 days in advance?" The thing is, in order to, if you're taking Doug Pederson at what he's saying there, it means A, you think he's actually sabotaging Carson Wentz by not doing that before, which I have a hard time believing. And B, it means you actually believe him when he says he's going to run the ball more and get the quick game when he hasn't done that all year. So that might have just been Doug talking to talk.
Yeah, but how are you going to establish the run? Like, what does that mean? What does establishing the run mean? Because, is that saying that you're just going to stick to it, or are you going to make sure that your guys are getting to the right person? Because too many times you see them not make the right calls. So you're saying, all right, you want to establish the run. What does that mean? You know, because you go back and, I had my grease board here to draw it up just in case, but I mean, if you want to, we can do it. But you go back to the first play of the game against Green Bay, all right? You're in 12 personnel, you had 2 tight ends, and now you had Miles Sanders. He made a beautiful spin move in the hole, but you didn't block the linebacker because you didn't call the right person. Then you go a couple plays later in that same particular drive. Now, you're driving down the field. You know what? Through that playoff, you called the same run to the left again, and you don't call. Instead of going to the linebacker, Kelsey pushed it to the safety. 54 came through. Tackle for a loss. Then now you're behind the downs, and it comes to 3rd and 12 or whatever. Killed the drive right there on the spot, and you end up having to end that drive with three points instead of being able to punch it into the end zone. So when you're saying establish the run, what does that mean?
That's a great question, because I think a lot of people have the same. What do you mean? You haven't established the run, given many opportunities against teams that aren't even as good as the Saints in their own defense.
It basically would mean coming out running the ball more than they normally would. Well, guess what? Who's got the best run defense in the National Football League?
I believe it's the Saints.
The Saints and the Bucks, 3.3 yards per carry. Good luck with that. But, Greg, I look at your scouting report, which I printed out from fantasypoints.com. See it right here?
That's right, yeah.
And watching him, it's exactly
sitting on my. I forgot to bring it. It's sitting right on my desk at home.
It's phenomenal.
You can tell me.
But here's the question. So you basically said last year, because you watched just every game, design QB runs quite a bit, gap scheme, zone read, RPO, which we knew about, inside zone, draw and sweep. How much of this do you think they can run this quickly? Because again, they didn't have an offseason. RPOs they've always done.
Right.
What do you think out of that group of plays that you wrote about? Could they? You think
I
they
think
could run
they'll
it
run most of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they'll try to run most of them, because I think they'll have to. I mean, I think that's what Jalen Hurts at this point probably does best. At this point in his career, making his first start against a really good defense. Now, whether they're successful, that's a different question. But I think they're going to try to feature that. And in an ideal world, you want to try to feature that stuff with things the Eagles don't do a lot of, which is motion, shifts, things that make the defense have to think before the snap of the ball. Because ultimately, if you run quarterback power, that's just a gap scheme run. It's power. It's not. You're not changing the world. It's just power. It's just the quarterback running it, right, Trey?
Yeah,
I mean, for the offensive line, it's power.
It's still power.
It's power. Yeah. I mean, if you run zone or a zone read, it's just for the offensive line. It's just zone blocking. So you're not changing anything, Adam. It's just that the quarterback's going to do it instead.
Maybe they'll run a lot of this today.
What you'd love to be able to do is lighten the box.
Yeah. And now, okay, see, now I have to draw this up.
Draw it up.
Now I have to draw it up, because here we go. If you're saying, now I have to draw it up. So let's just go ahead and just get a little offensive line here, all right? So now we have an end. You got a 3-technique tackle, end. Now, the problem with this team right here is saying, all right, we want to run it left. Well, the team knows, okay, we're going to run it left. And then they say, all right, you know what? Boom, 54, and then you have 58. Now, this is Green Bay, what we did. Now, what we did, we ran a zone to the left, all right? Why would you run it to the left? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defenders that you only have 1, 2, 3 offensive linemen to take care of.
So he should have flipped the run.
Flip the play.
Yeah.
Flip the play, because now you're trying to zone all this to the left. When you can say, if you can run outside zone to the left, you can run inside zone to the right. So if you're saying, all right, you know what, we got too many guys over here, why not just say, all right, you know what, black over. Bam, we're here. You get a combination block here to 58. We get a combination block here to 54. You had a tight end over here, and then you have him just sift up to 31. Bam, we're off and running, instead of trying to run it into the teeth of the defense. So when you're saying, all right, we're going to establish the run game, what does that mean?
Yeah,
because,
great point.
Why are you running into brick walls?
You're running into a brick wall. So, you can call it all you want, but you're running into a brick wall.
That is such a great point, because one of the things I always take a look at, I had an opportunity, I've gotten to know Paul Alexander really well, who's a former O-line coach in the league for 25 years. Do you know Paul at all?
Formerly the Bengals and Cowboys?
Yeah.
I think Pitt as well for college. I thought
he was with the Bengals for a really long time. And, I knew about this generally, but he really taught me about fronts in much greater detail. So now when I watch tape, because I'm much more of a pass guy, you know, I love, but now I make it a point to look at fronts. And, you know, so now what I see a lot of teams in the league play what we call over fronts now. And Trey knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that means that the strength of the defensive front is shifted to the strength of the offensive formation, the tight end side. So you don't want to run to, teams have great success running weak against that, what they call the bubble. They run to the bubble. They run away from the strength of the defensive front. And I think you're getting into that a little bit here. So you can say, hey, let's run the ball, but it's how you run the ball. You know?
Because if you're going to keep running into the teeth of the defense, and that, I mean, they did that twice in the first drive, and it never dawned on them to say, you know what? We don't have enough guys over here. We're one short. So you know what? Say, you know what? Check. Black over. And it seemed like Carson was like doing that little kill, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. Is that a dummy call? Or are you trying to fake the defense? Because a lot of times you'll see offenses where we'll have a dummy call in there. So we'll have whatever that call is, check, whatever, and we're trying to throw the defense off to make them feel like we're going to switch it, but we're still going to the same way. But to me, it seemed like they were like, hey, you know what? I see that I'm outnumbered, and you still call the wrong person, and it thins out the defense. Thins out the offensive line. So when you look at our run game, too many times I feel like our offensive line is too thin. So we never have a hat on a hat forming it up into the right person, because, I mean, you know, they spread themselves out too thin, and then you got guys coming free, and then that run play could have been positive, end up being a negative.
And the thing is, the Eagles do have a really good back in Sanders, and if you call the right runs and call it away from the strength, you don't need a great back. Last week, Ty Johnson of the Jets rushed for over 100 yards against the Raiders, who played a ton of over fronts, and the Jets kept running to the weakness of the defensive front. And Ty Johnson literally didn't have to make one move, and he'd gain 8 yards.
If I'm not mistaken, a bunch of Miles Sanders' big runs this year have come off the weak side, where the play was designed to go, but he cut it back with the blocking scheme. So you would have thought, Trey, with what you just showed, that would have been kind of obvious to the offense at that time. But that does raise a great question to me, because Doug Pederson was asked during the week about how he can assure Carson that this is just a little minor setback, little bump in the road, and that things are going to be great or better in the long term. And his answer was very interesting to me, because he started off by saying that, well, hey, this thing's a two-way street. So the first thing he says is basically Carson's got to watch and look at some of the things and be able to make these corrections along with me. He did say he has to do a much better job, as coaches always say, but I found the whole two-way street comment to be pretty interesting. And I wonder if we're going to learn something a little bit more about Doug over these next 4 weeks, having a quarterback in place now who probably won't have the autonomy that Carson Wentz had. Trey, you talked about the kill and the ability of giving the keys to Carson and letting him run the offense. I don't think we're going to see that with Jalen Hurts. I think you're going to see almost what you saw when Nick Foles came in 2017, which is an offense that Doug is going to have more autonomy over. Will that change? Do you expect the offense to be a little bit the way Doug envisions it, because there won't be any of the killing and as many audibles and autonomy given to the quarterback?
Well, you know what? Okay, so because I don't think it's all Carson just saying. Now, the kill could mean a lot of different things.
Right.
You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's changing the play. It could mean that, hey, we're supposed to run right, that we're going to go left. You know, so and it could be a dummy call. You never know what that kill means. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's changing the play that Doug called in and he's making it a throw. I've only saw that one time where, was that against Seattle, where they came out with 3 passes, and it was the second play was actually called run, but he threw he missed Ward on the slant there.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to be a run, just because you could tell by the way everybody blocked it. But other than that, I don't know if it's actually something where he's actually changing the play. My problem is, how are you going to change it in practice? Because you're saying, all right, what if New Orleans say, all right, you know what, we know the read system here with your routes. We're going to take that first read away from the quarterback. Are you going to still practice Hurts the same way that you practice Carson? Because that's the problem. That's been the problem, because he's always had his first 2 reads in practice. So once those reads are taken away, he doesn't know how to react to go to the other side of the field.
See, you got to spend more time on social media, because all these experts on social media, they know for a fact every time the quarterback changes the play. I see it every Monday and Tuesday. They know exactly what happened. They know what every word means and what every, right, Adam?
I
They
know
know
it, I know
everything.
it.
So you got to look at that.
The internet scouts.
I see him one time on social media.
Are you saying at Eagles fan 1527 doesn't know that Carson killed the player?
Not just about the Eagles either. These
No,
guys know
that's true.
everything.
Yeah, they know every team.
About everything, yeah.
All right, I want to get to a point, Adam, you made about rebuilding Carson Wentz and not necessarily fixing him. First, I want to stop right here so we can hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And, of course, you get to hear from the voice of the Eagles, Merrill Reese.
Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, we thank our friend Sky Motor Cars, great partners. Adam, I know you've done, you know
I did.
Brett Schulter. And
My wife and I think we bought one through them and sold two to them. And the great thing about Sky Motor Cars, yeah, they're in Westchester, Pennsylvania, easy to get to right off 202. But if you're watching us in California, just go to their website. They ship cars. In fact, I think they do more than 50% of their business online. So they do ship, and that's an easy way to get it done. SkyMotorCars.com.
you make sure you tell them that Jeff and Adam sent you. All right, you talked about rebuilding Carson Wentz. It can't be a quick fix, and this is a big question that a lot of people have, but it's difficult to answer, as we've mentioned on the podcast, because with 4 games left here, and who knows what happens in the offseason, we don't know whose job it will be to fix Carson or to rebuild Carson Wentz. I mean, it's going to be a big question.
Just based on history, you and I have talked about this many times. The Eagles make the playoffs in 18 and 19, coaches are either fired or not retained.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they made the playoffs, the offensive coordinator was not brought back, and same with the receivers coach. So logic tells you there's going to be some changes after the season, even if they make the playoffs.
Right.
I'm not saying it's going to be the head coach. But how could you possibly bring back the same structure of coaches? Whether you want to reassign people, you could do whatever you want, but you can't have the same structure because not only has the starting quarterback been benched, the number 2 quarterback who you're paying $2 million, Nate Sudfeld, he's no longer the number 2 quarterback after week 2. Mm-hmm. He's inactive, and they're paying him $2 million not to even dress.
Wow, just a crazy
Those are
situation
facts.
from the,
I mean, these
from
are
the quarterback
indisputable
factory.
facts. Yeah,
Beautiful payday right now, man.
I'll take it.
Well, hey, can I tell you a very
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
story about rebuilding a quarterback? So Ron Jaworski is one of my best friends, and he was with the Eagles. It was 1980, their Super Bowl year. He'd been in the league 7 years already. Mm-hmm. And Dick Vermeil in training camp in 1980 brought in Sid Gillman, who is considered the father of the modern-day passing game.
Yeah.
And Jaws, like I said, been in the league 7 years. Been a starter. He was in the playoffs with the Rams as a starter. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, we're not talking about a rookie quarterback. And Jaws said Sid Gillman started, and again, shotgun back in those days, nobody did shotgun, so keep that in mind. But he said Sid Gillman started with me in the offseason, taking the snap from center. And the hand placement, the footwork, taking the snap.
So,
that's how you
ground
rebuild.
zero.
You start from ground zero. You make no assumptions about what the quarterback knows or doesn't know. And by the way, and I think Trey would echo this, I think that should be true at every position.
Yeah,
I don't think you should assume
Fundamentals, man.
that guys
Fundamentals.
just know how to do things.
Sure.
Right. Right.
Sure.
No, yeah, definitely.
And Jeff, how many times have we talked about? We had heard that from people we spoke to around the league that look at the Eagles tape. Wentz sometimes doesn't even have his feet set up correctly.
Yeah.
Which is almost unconscionable at this level.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder how it's being coached, but we only have the results, and results, unfortunately, are that he got benched.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned earlier, though, that these things can tend to be polarizing. As far as people defending Carson, there were a lot of people in the locker room, or at least on Zoom, for the Eagles who came to Carson Wentz's defense and were very quick to point out that the failures of the team and the offense in particular are not all on Carson Wentz. And Jason Kelce was one person who was very outspoken about that. So let's listen to the veteran Eagles center when asked about Carson Wentz and the offense.
You know, I don't know if responsibility is the right word. I mean, there's, you don't feel bad. Carson has unfortunately not played well, so, these are the situations that happen. But you feel bad that, he's the sole one taking the hit right now. Obviously the entire offense has been terrible. Offensive line, running backs, receivers, coaches. You aren't this bad unless everybody shares blame in this whole thing. And I think everybody here knows that. I know that Carson knows that this is not just him. We got to do something. We got to try and spark some sort of difference. You can't keep doing the same thing and expecting to get better. We just haven't been able to do it. So, obviously, Jalen's going to go out there and get his opportunity this week. And as a young kid, that great attitude, went in at the end of the game, did some things. So we'll see how he does in a full game.
Welcome back to Inside the Birds. Adam Kaplan, Jeff Mosher will be here in a second. Cosell, Trey Thomas. It's Saints week, week 14, and guys, here's the deal. We haven't talked about the Saints defense yet,
we
Jeff.
need to talk about the Saints.
We need to talk the Saints defense. Let's get into it, Jeff, because I know that Jeff's got this next. The Saints defense, Greg, how good is this defense? Because we don't talk about them a lot, but they've got a lot of good players. Tell us about their front.
They're really good at all three levels. But their front, I know Malcolm Brown's out today. He's rotational. There's a lot of players on that front that people might not know about. Onyemata is a really good defensive tackle who's improved dramatically as this year's progressed. When he came into the league, people saw him just as kind of a stout, hold-the-point guy. He's shown a lot more quickness this year. He's shown better hand usage. He's actually been effective as an inside pass rusher, which I'm sure Trey can speak to.
Yeah.
But then, and Davenport's back this week, right?
He's back. And how about Steve Jordan's son, Cameron Jordan?
No, I was going to say, that's going to be a very intriguing matchup because will it be Driscoll at right tackle?
Yes.
Yes.
Driscoll will be overmatched. So now the question is, how do they deal with the fact that Driscoll will be overmatched? That's another question that's critical to how they choose to run their offense, the Eagles that is. Because you have Cam Jordan at left DN, you're going to have Davenport and Hendrickson at right defensive end. Hendrickson, by the way, has 10.5 sacks. And what they do a lot of times in their sub-fronts is they'll bring either Davenport or Hendrickson inside as a 3 technique, often as a stand-up 3 technique to rush the quarterback against guards. And that's very difficult. So they present a lot of problems just with their defensive front. And Trey can jump in here, but then we have to talk about their linebackers and their secondary because that's really important too.
I want to get to Trey's point on the layering of the pass rush because I think it's very important. First, I just want to remind everybody, check out Philadelphia Sports Nation for all of your latest news on Philadelphia sports. They cover the Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, even the Union like nobody else. You can find them on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation or their website, phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fan experience with their coverage and content. So we thank them. As we go further into trench talk here, Trey, you had brought it up before, and I know you've done videos on this on your YouTube channel, In the Trenches with Trey Thomas, specifically on the Saints, right? You studied them and what you call layering the pass rush. So, but feel free to use the grease board.
Oh, we're going to use the grease board again? All right. So now let's just drop an offense real quick. First of all, man, if you listen to somebody that doesn't draw a square for the center, you should stop listening for
Where did you learn to draw this, by the way, from Juan?
Just Juan.
Okay,
yeah, just
I know
anybody.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
So you
Every
got
coach
your
does
ends.
this. I know.
You're going to have your tackle.
I love it, though.
Tackle, in. All right. So now, let's just this is just with a 4-man front. And when I'm saying that you're going to layer your pass rush, you're going to have one guy that's going to run high. So let's put our quarterback here. So you're going to have one guy that's going to run high. Then you're going to have another guy that's not going to be as high. Okay? And then as a defensive tackle, you might have someone that might start here, and then he comes here for just that initial pressure here, and then he might come here and run the high route in here. So what that does is that funnels that quarterback in. Or you might have him, if he's going to be the high guy, you put that defensive tackle in the 1 technique over here, and you say, all right, you know what? I want you to run high, but then I want you to come here, and then you funnel here. You know what I'm saying? So it's a way of just funneling that quarterback into the pocket. You want to have the high guy make that quarterback step up, and then you're going to have a guy that's not going to be as high coming in, and they run it from all types of angles, where they run it from games, they run it from whoever. You know, you might see a time where you say, all right, you're going to have the linebacker come in, and that's what's going to start their 5-man front where you have your offensive line here, you're going to have an end here, you have a tackle, you move that defensive tackle to over the center, and then you'll have a linebacker sitting in here, and then now that makes you a 5 down front, which is going to make your offensive line have to say, you know what, we have to block 5 on.
Is that your 5-0 you were talking about?
Yeah, that's going to be 5-0. So, you know, and they bring it.
Teams do that now.
Yeah, they bring it. And now sometimes he might have the running back. If the running back gets out in the route, he'll drop out into it, but then sometimes he'll come too. So they're going to have their work cut out for him with this defense.
Is that type of scheme, the layering to keep the guy in the pocket, what they do all the time, or when they're facing?
They do it all the time.
Okay.
They do it all the time. They layer all the time, and that's and especially when you have an athletic quarterback.
Right.
That's what you want to do against an athletic quarterback. You want to make sure you make him moves. Once his foot steps, you make him step up in the pocket, because that's where I got it from when I watched them play against Houston, where they were going up against Deshaun Watson. They ended up beating him for 6 or 8 sacks that game. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I mean, they came out there and it was perfect the way you saw it. And I mean, there were times where you had a defensive tackle way out here in the end, and they still came with that layering technique. And it's what you want to do against an athletic quarterback.
The other thing they do a lot of, and they're really good at it, because they play a lot of man coverage, is they're really good at what we call green dogs. Okay, so. And you could see that today, because what's going to happen more than likely is the Eagles will need to keep someone in, tight end back to help Driscoll. You know, and so what a green dog is when you're playing man coverage. So the player who's, let's say, matched up to the tight end, if the tight end stays into block,
You blitz.
that guy then adds into the pass rush.
Right.
That would be Malcolm Jenkins more than likely.
Right. I was going to say it's usually a linebacker or a safety.
If it's the
in that
back,
area.
it would probably be Demario Davis. He normally would match up to the back. So if the back stays into pass protect, then Davis would add into the pass rush. So you'll see that a lot.
I remember seeing a lot, was it the 2 years ago when they lost badly, I think 41-7 down in the Superdome?
Yeah.
2018, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and I remember seeing a lot of that.
No, well, they do that because they play a lot of man. Now, the other question that this game presents is, will they play as much man? Because they might think that Hurts, in his first start, is likely to run more than to sit in the pocket and try to make throws. So the question is, will they play as much man? Will they use a spy?
I was just going to ask you, because on your breakdown for the matchup show on ESPN, did you not say the Giants use 3 different players?
They use 3 different players
Wow.
versus Russell Wilson. One in their nickel, one in dime, and one when they played 7 defensive backs.
Wow.
So, and I would believe that if the Saints want to use a spy, I believe they'll think that either Demario Davis or Quan Alexander is athletic enough to be a spy.
Quan
Because Hurts is a
especially,
good
yeah,
runner,
yeah.
but he's not, explosive in the way that Lamar Jackson is. He's not that kind of runner.
One of the things I've seen them do as well, even if they run stunts in games and they do use that green dog, they'll use one of their defensive tackles to kind of just fall back.
Yep.
And they'll still layer everything, and then they'll have that defensive tackle just kind of back up a little bit, don't rush, and just in case something leaks out, then he takes off to whichever side is on.
Right.
So, they have their work
They're
cut
also
out.
very creative with their pressure schemes. They have a great down 4, but there's times where Dennis Allen, and actually I had a chance to talk to him, I've gotten to know him reasonably well, and they do a lot of really interesting things pressure-wise that are tough to pick up before the snap of the ball.
How much is Malcolm Jenkins' role, Greg, changed from when he was in Philly?
I don't think it's dramatically changed. I mean, he plays early in the season. They were trying to figure out, in the context of their defense, what he is. They know what he is as a player, but now you have to fit him into the whole defense. And I think over the last 6-7 weeks, he's played much, much better. They play a lot of 2-man coverage, which means 2 deep safeties man-to-man across the board. He'll match up to the tight end more often than not. They'll use him at times as a blitzer. They'll line up, and Trey has seen this too, in what we call double mug front, where they line up with 2 stand-up players, a linebacker, and it could be Jenkins, in the A-gaps on either side of the center, and that creates, you have to protect that. There's only 2 ways to protect that. The predominant way is the back has to be involved in protection. So they do a lot of things that dictate how you protect.
So, it sounds like the Saints are pretty good.
I'm going to say, I would not want to be Jeff Stoutland today.
No.
This could be problematic based on the way you're breaking it
you
down.
hear the term, and Trey can really speak to this, about breaking down protection. You hear people say, oh, they broke down the protection. What that means to me is most defensive coaches know how teams are going to protect. Because again, there's not 100 protections. There's a certain number of protections.
You got slide man and
Right.
play action.
Right. I mean, yeah. So what they do is they know by how they set up their defensive front, which can include linebackers and DBs, depending who's in the front, they know how the offense will protect versus that particular front, and then they can cause problems based on knowing how they'll protect.
Yeah.
And know that they're going to go in there. They understand slide and man protection. They truly do. You can tell by the way they rush that they understand slide protection. And what they'll do is make sure that they put a rusher in there to hold Kelsey.
Right.
And whatever side they say, okay, we're going to hold Kelsey to this side, well, I know that side is man.
Yep.
So now we're going to bring all kinds of games over there. They're going to pick a side that struggles with games, and they're going to hold Kelsey to one side, and then they're going to bring the games and blitzes to the other side because they understand how slide protection works.
I'm not
a
sure
great
that they're
point.
going to actually have to pick a side this time because
That's
the
a great
Eagles have
point, though.
struggled with games.
But we're talking tactics.
Yeah,
Because
but you can get them on both is what I'm saying.
normally
right?
what happens is you slide protection is a zone concept. So you slide one way. It's usually the uncovered O lineman. Let's say it's the
It's usually center. It's all
Yeah.
based off of which side the center goes, which way the center goes.
Right. But normally opposite the slide is man protection.
Yeah, they're in
and
man.
that's where you can attack. That's where you can overload.
Sure. Nate Herbig is going to start at right guard again.
And Driscoll's at right tackle.
And rookie
Yeah.
right
But
tackle.
Jordan
Jake
and
Driscoll,
Isaac got beat the first sack against.
That's right.
Was it against Seattle? Was off of a game, and that was a late TE, and that was over Jordan and Isaac. So,
Trey, last week with all the pressure that Wentz was under, was it more on him, a combination of he and the line? What was the issue last week?
I think it was a combination of he and the line. I thought that they just didn't do a good job of slide protection as well. They went in there knowing that, okay, we know how to attack you. Then Jason Peters was getting worked over pretty good because they did a good job as well of making sure that, all right, you know what, I'm going to isolate you, and what we're going to do is hold Kelsey. If you can hold Kelsey to a side, you can pick whatever side you want apart.
Sure.
And especially if you know that you have a weak link, with JP, knowing that his toe was jacked up, you say, all right, you know what? Make sure we keep Kelsey to the left. Hey, defensive tackle, go ahead and have your way. You have a two-way go on it.
Sure.
And that's what he did.
You mentioned David Onyata, a good defensive tackle for the Saints. I know that he was a player that the Eagles had interest in this offseason, along with Javon Hargrave. They wound up signing Javon Hargrave to a big contract. You saw Hargrave had a sack last week. I know his teammates have said he's coming along. His coaches feel like he's coming along in a difficult system to adapt to because he had played in a different system beforehand. I also want to get to Brandon Graham as we flip the script here and talk about the Eagles D-line in Trench Talk. Trey, you mentioned something when you were on Grilling the Birds with Derek Gunn, which is on the Inside the Birds platform, that you felt that Brandon, there's a reason why for the last few weeks you haven't seen Brandon Graham get a sack or as many pressures.
Yeah, well, because he's always in the same stance. He's always been a guy that lines up with his inside foot back. So if I'm saying because BG is over the right tackle, so his right foot is going to be, his left foot is going to be back. No, I don't know. Well, anyway, he always has his inside foot back. And if you know that a defensive end never changes his stance, then that means that he's always going to make contact in the same spot. He's going to take one step up the field, two steps, and then his third step is what's coming at you. So as an offensive tackle, if you understand how to count steps, you know they're like, all right, all I want to do is get 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to make contact. Now, you can either do that or you can jump him, because he has to take 2 steps before he can react. So as a defensive end, he has to change his stance. Sometimes, if he has his inside foot back, he has to go 1, 2 before he can come inside. So that means as an offensive tackle, I'd say, well, you know what? If you don't want to vertical set him, just take 3 kicks, then all right, every now and then jump him, because he has to take 2 steps before he can react. Now, if his outside foot is back, you don't want to jump him there because he can go 1, 2 and take you back inside. Right. But if his inside foot is back, 2 steps have to get down for him to react inside. So now you say, all right, you know what? Jump him. Jump him or go ahead and get the 3 and punch. Just trust it.
Are defensive ends, and you've studied them, you've played against them, you've coached them, are they a little stubborn?
Sometimes they just get used to doing what they do. That's
what I
why I've always told the defensive end, like when I look at rush, to me, you shouldn't have a style. You know what I'm saying? Your style should be based off what you're dealing with each week. So you should have your repertoire of rushes based off of how the tackles are going to attack you. If you have a puncher, then now you need to be working double hand swipes or coming with all the different stuff where you're cleaning hands. If you have a grabber, then now you're going to come with more bull rush, one hand stab, spin moves off that, you know?
Did you notice that when it could be OCU Mignor, whoever the veteran DN was, did you notice that, okay, he does this, but sometimes he does this?
Yeah, we always knew
up?
going into it. All right, the first thing I looked at, which foot does he have back? And that's the first thing we looked at every week. All right, which foot does he have back? Then now I start looking at, okay, what moves does he like to work? And then in practice, I want to make sure whatever defensive end that's out there in practice, I need you to give me these moves. You know, and that was extremely important. Yeah, whoever my look guy was, I need you to give me these moves throughout the week. If I'm dealing with a fast guy, like any speed guys, Dwight Freeney or whatever, hey man, I need Ike Reese. I even did pass sets against Reno Mahe during the week, just because I needed that type to get me ready for a game. You know, so that's how we attacked it. But you know,
so is the steps is which foot's back? That gets into the whole concept of counting steps.
That's
right?
extremely important.
It's like a baseball pitcher tipping his pitches in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know, okay, well, you know what? His inside foot back. Then all right. If we're going to make contact on his third step. If not, it's going to be on his fifth step.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's 1, 2, 3. If not, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. You see what I'm saying? But if his outside foot is back, it's usually 1, 2, 3, 4. If it goes to 6, I mean, he's past the quarterback by then.
For sure.
Who gave you more trouble? Guys who were a little closer to you, or guys who were in a really wide 9?
I hated the wide stance.
You did?
You know, I hated wide guys just because. I mean, the closer you are to me, that works into my favor. But if you're way out there, that's as a tackle, you know that you're going to take a deep set. And he's gaining a whole lot of momentum to come with that bull rush. No, you can't jump him.
Yeah.
You know, and then you don't want to create a lot of space between you and the guard, because what if he guts upfield and then now it's a game and then now you get picked on the inside hill.
Were the shorter guys you had said on our show before, guys like Dwight Freeney, were those guys the toughest ones?
Yeah, I hated the short guys and like Harrison out of Pittsburgh.
My goodness gracious,
he was
Harrison,
an animal, because I mean he's only 5, 6 feet.
Right.
You know, dealing with somebody like that can come with that bull rush too. You know, and Dwight Freeney didn't have a lot of moves. Like when I played against Dwight Freeney, we were in Indy, so it was I had to go off silent count, so I couldn't watch him. So which I think kind of helped me a little bit, because I didn't have to look at him. I could kind of see what kind of stance he's in, and then now I just go.
I want to get into a little bit to Javon Hargrave. I mentioned he had a sack last week, and Fletcher Cox had some really interesting things to say this week when asked about Hargrave's development. So first, let's hear from Eagles defensive tackle Fletcher Cox on Javon Hargrave.
I told him when he first got here, the first couple of days when he started, he's really trying to figure it out. I told him, Jay, I said, Jay, it's don't happen overnight, man. You know, I said, it's going to take some time. I said, it might even take you a year. I said, it might take you to the end of the season, you know, and he was like, man, really? I said, yeah. I said, but once you do figure it out, man, you'll realize that how fun this defense is to play in. You know, you get to fly off the ball, you know, play on the offensive side of the ball, and just the linebackers clean up everything for you. And right now, I'm just really starting to click it, man. I think it started, really, I think like 2 games ago, you know, where we're just seeing him just flying off the ball, and it started in practice. And I told Jay one day after Thursday practice, I said, man, I think you've had the best practice this year. This week, attacking the line of scrimmage and really figuring out the defense. And I think that kind of sunk in on him, and he just ran with it, and he's doing a really good job at attacking.
That was Eagles defensive tackle Fletcher Cox talking about Javon Hargrave. We discussed a couple of weeks ago that it's a little bit overstated, right, Greg, about coming from the Pittsburgh system to the Eagles system, because it's not like the Steelers 2-gap all of the time.
Right.
But Fletcher did say that this is not the first time that a guy has had to come from a different scheme and kind of adjust to what Jim Schwartz does. And we saw that with Tim Jernigan when he came over from Baltimore. Jim, I remember that year saying summer was difficult for him. The first few weeks of the season were difficult just because he was making a transition into this scheme. But what have you seen from Javon? And talk to that, the idea of changing schemes.
I think it's not the scheme, to me anyway, and believe me, I'm not a defensive line coach, so take it for what it's worth.
No, not as far as you know.
No. I don't even play one on TV. But I think it's more of how things get taught. You know, because every coach teaches things differently, and I think when you're asked to execute certain techniques, that you haven't been taught before, then you start thinking through the techniques.
Right.
And that's where you don't play at the speed at which you need to play. And so your reactions tend to be, just a half beat slower. So I think that's what takes time.
Right.
It's probably like offensive line, Trey. Different guys teach different techniques.
Yeah.
So then, you're trying to execute those techniques. And if you've been in the league 4 or 5 years and you have someone teaching a brand new technique, it just takes a little more time.
Right.
But I always liked the player a lot. I remember watching him coming out of South Carolina State, where he was actually a pass rusher, and I think he can be a really good player in a 4-3 scheme. And again, now we're assuming that the coaching staff and everything's the same as we go forward, because he did sign a long-term deal. But I think that he'll just get better and better, and I think he does have pass rush traits, and you will see that continue to show up as he plays more.
And remember, no offseason for him. Then he had the pectoral injury in training camp, but he missed just about all of training camp.
Then I think it was a hamstring right after
another minor. So, of course, he's not going to be right for the first half. And now you're starting to see it. So, you're starting to see, Jeff, what you had heard in the offseason when you talk about Onyemata. They liked him, too. They wanted another interior pass rusher. And when Fletcher Cox retires, the hope is that Hargrave will be that next really good Eagles pass rusher.
There you go. All right, if you're enjoying today's show, the bright lights, the fancy graphics, the quality sound, it's all thanks to our team at Rebel Hill Productions. Reach out to Zach and Jim at Rebel Hill today for a free consultation to discuss your digital strategy and content needs. Their email address is info@rebelhillconsulting.com. You can also call them at 215-668-8498. That's info@rebelhillconsulting.com, 215-668-8498. Zach and Jim do an awesome job. Of course, we thank them for everything they do for this show. It is time for the Manscaped Man of the Week. Trey, I can't tell you how many. I feel a little cheap in that some of our people reach out to us and say they only watch the show for your Manscaped.
Oh my God!
Wow, cheapens the whole experience here for the rest of for us three. We're just hood ornaments.
Hey, folks, we've moved the show earlier. The final 4 weeks, in case you haven't heard,
that's
we're
right.
going to be on from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So you can't say you didn't hear from Trey.
That's
Get
right.
up early if you're on the West Coast and hear it.
Let's get to our Manscaped Men of the Game. Greg, I'll start with you. I know you've mentioned his name already once today, but who's your Manscaped Man of the Game?
I'm going to pick Demario Davis because I think he's one of the 2 or 3 best 3-down linebackers in the game. My guess is he's going to be a significant part of Dennis Allen's game plan. He always is, obviously, but I think against a quarterback that they probably feel is going to leave the pocket, and also with the design run game. So I think Demario Davis, I don't know what his stats will be. That's not relevant to me, but they could be great. But I think he's a central figure in this game and will be a major factor.
Adam, who is your Manscaped Man of the Game?
I'm going to stay on the Saints side, but I'm going to go to the D-line. And Cameron Jordan, we don't talk about him enough. Terrific football player. Yep. So consistent. He's a top 5 DN to me. Brings it every game. His dad was terrific. Steve, who was a tight end many years, number 87 for the Vikings. So Cameron Jordan will get the job done today, and he is my Manscaped Man of the Game.
Very smart player, by the way. I always enjoy his interviews.
Just like his dad.
Really
Steve was an
player.
Ivy Leaguer, if I recall correctly.
I believe so.
My Manscaped Man of the Game is going to be Alex Singleton.
Ooh.
I feel with TJ Edwards out today that Eagles are very much hurting and thin at the linebacker level, and they're going to need Alex Singleton to have a very good game. You saw a little bit, Tunyon got behind him for a touchdown there last week against Green Bay. He's just got to be good. He's got to kind of be the savior of this Eagle linebacker core today if they're going to have a chance to upset the New Orleans Saints. So my Manscaped Man of the Game is Alex Singleton. Trey, who is your Manscaped Man of the Game?
Man, I'm going Malcolm Jenkins coming back to Philly.
Good one. Good choice.
I think that he's going to come in fired up. I know that he's a little upset that the crowd's not there, but I think that he's still going to come in and wreck shop just because he wants to prove to you that you should have kept him.
That is a very Malcolm Jenkins-like thing to do.
Absolutely.
I know he was outspoken on that. Why don't you also be outspoken on our friends from Manscaped?
All right, so looking for the ultimate stocking stuffers for this holiday season? Look no further because our sponsors at Manscaped have the tools to make you win this year's stocking stuffer or white elephant competition. Manscaped is the only brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming and hygiene products. And great news, they just released their products across Europe, Canada, and Australia. Here's a few of their products that are prime stocking stuffers this season. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. The name speaks for itself. the Crop Reviver Ball Toner, a spray-on toner that will give your balls a little slice of heaven with their aloe vera and hazel extracts. A Crop Cleanser Body Wash, a full body wash that you can also use on your hair. Crop Mops, which are ball wipes. You never know when an opportunity strikes, so you should always be prepared. Foot Dusters are foot deodorant designed to keep the stinkest of feet smelling fresh. They also have Shears 2.0, which is a luxury 4-piece nail kit. They also have the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, which provides proprietary skin-safe technology to get rid of those nasty nose hairs of yours, because you don't want any bats hanging in the cave. So here we go. Let's see. Let's not forget about their best trimmer for your butt, balls, and body. The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer offers a replaceable ceramic blade with advanced skin-safe technology, which helps reduce grooming accidents. These formulations are all vegan, cruelty-free, dye-free, sulfate-free, and paraben-free, so you know these products are legit. Get 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code TRADE, T-R-A. Whether this is for your dad, brother, or friend, get them something that they will actually use, and it's almost sure to get a laugh. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code TRADE, T-R-A. Be the ballsiest gift giver this year with Manscaped.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Literally, figuratively, everything.
Yes.
Make sure you're doing it with Manscaped. We will move on. Great read by there from Trey. A couple comments on the board. This is very nice from Matt Zudemeyer. I hope I pronounced that correctly, who says, I'm legit learning so much bleep from this show. So we're doing a great job of educating.
Thank you.
For the second time this week, someone is observing me and saying that I look a little bit like DJ Khaled without the beard. So I feel like perhaps I've gained a few extra pounds during COVID-19. So there we go.
Not the freshman 15, the COVID-10.
Yeah, the COVID-19 or whatever it is. Yeah. And all I do is eat, no matter what. So
yeah, there you go.
I've been packing on the pounds. As we get back to the game, I want to bring up some of the firepower that the Saints have. We talked a lot about what they are in defense, but clearly offensively, a very well-rounded team. Now, this stat is amazing to me. If you go back to last year when Drew Brees missed time and it was Teddy Bridgewater filling in, and then add in what Taysom Hill has done, the Saints are 8-0 in the last 2 years when Drew Brees doesn't start. I think they just got to trade to get rid of him in the offseason, right?
That's not what you would expect. You know, it's funny. Greg comes on our show on SiriusXM Fantasy every Friday, and I talked about, hey, to running quarterbacks. He said, not so fast. So what did you learn about Taysom Hill this past week from your tape study?
Well, first of all, he's improved. Let's throw out the Denver game. So he's thrown 2 starts again.
Pass, yeah.
Right.
We throw that out, by the way, because the Broncos started a practice squad wide receiver.
So he's had 2 starts against the same team, both the Falcons. But in the second start this past week, clearly Sean Payton added a little bit. The first start was very basic stuff, a lot of half-field reads, stuff that theoretically the Eagles should be doing with Jalen Hurts. We'll see. But this week, they added more to his plate. And in fact, he threw a touchdown to Cook in the red zone, the high red zone, 11-yard line. That was the exact same play that Drew Brees threw the touchdown to Jared Cook week 8 against the Bears. It was the exact same play, formation, route concepts, exactly the same. But the thing about Taysom Hill, and then this is where I think Adam was going, they call design runs for him, and that's always part of their game plan. But he's not a runaround quarterback. He does not flee the pocket. Now, obviously, there'll be plays.
You mean as a scrambler?
As a scrambler.
Runs when it's designed, but not when it's
and
not.
again, part of that has to do with the great route design and concepts in the pass game, and Sean Payton's always been one of the best in the league at that. But Hill's natural instinct is not just to flee the pocket. He stands and throws the football, and he's got a pretty good arm. He can throw with velocity. He's shown some pretty good ball placement. They do such a good job, though, with how they design their concepts that the throws are there, and they've also got some very, very good receivers, obviously. But he is not a run-around quarterback unless it absolutely demands it.
So can some of that play into the Eagles' advantage with their with the Eagles' defensive line and the fact that I feel like mobile quarterbacks who are scrambling, I know he is, but like you said, he does not. He's mostly running when it's designed run, not a scrambler. So he's going to stay in the pocket mostly and look for the throw. And I know they have a good offensive line, but this is what the Eagles' defensive line was meant for, to get after someone who wants to do that. Trey, you look skeptical.
I mean, when you look at our defense, we're getting after it. We have some sacks. We are right now sitting at 38 sacks, which is second in the league, I think, right now. But you know, how many games have you looked at that made it feel like, dang, man, we just destroyed an offensive line?
It's a fair point.
Rare.
So I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
Yeah, so you know,
It seems like they do play well in spurts. You're right. You're still waiting for that single dominant performance from the Eagles D-line.
And they do not force turnovers. They're a big pressure defense,
Right,
but they do not get turnovers. And Jim Schwartz.
And by the way, I didn't want to come
go
across
ahead.
like Taysom Hill can't run if he needs to. I don't want people to think he's just going to stand in there like a statue.
Right,
I
didn't
mean,
do that.
The play design creates throws for him, but believe me, he does have movement ability. He's just not a guy that looks to run. A lot of quarterbacks who are very mobile look to move. He doesn't look to move unless it's absolutely demanded.
And you would think, by the way, based on the track record, and I think we telestrated a video of it 2 weeks ago, you go back to Daniel Jones twice beating them on zone read, Lamar Jackson beating them last year, Josh Allen.
They got to be careful with that because Jones, not only did he have that 85-yarder, but in the second matchup he had that 31-yard touchdown, which was actually a beautifully designed play. Where they added some cool elements to the play, but the Eagles have struggled with that, and they run a ton of quarterback power,
So this will be a test for the Eagle. Again, the interior of the Eagles defense, especially the linebacker level, Alex Singleton will come into play. As we talk about the Eagles and what they're hoping to get accomplished today offensively, you saw it a little bit. Jalen Hurts on his first real pass, he hits Jalen Reagor 34 yards down the left sideline. Nice read on that play. We had shown it earlier. The Saints the Packers showed a certain style of blitz, and then it wound up just being a four-man rush, I believe, with a defensive back rushing.
It was Raven Green.
Right.
Yeah, their dime. He got in clean. 'Cause
Right.
I think it was Sanders who kind of missed his assignment there. But
It was
Raven
definitely
Green
Sanders
got in
missing,
clean.
yeah.
But see, the thing is, that was the timing of that turned out to be 5-step drop timing, and a second-level defender, even if he's clean, will not get there on 5-step drop timing if the ball's thrown.
Good drop, good throw,
Right.
good read, and everything on Jalen Hurts. I would have to think that the plan today is to get Jalen Reagor and Jalen Hurts on the same page and to try to get the ball in his hands. We saw Reagor have a nice catch, an 11-yard pickup on an end around, and a punt return touchdown.
Well,
Those were the only 3 touches he had in the game. Again, we talk about what can you do differently. If there's not an emphasis on Hurts to Reagor today, then I have to wonder what's going on. And I know the Saints are good. They'll do everything they can to take it out.
The Eagles are still going to show up and play.
Yeah, but you got,
No, but they just right though.
Are you sure that's true? Are you sure?
They definitely need to. They need to say, hey, listen, we're going in. We want to get him the ball out. I get it. This is something that I've had an issue with. First, it was they wouldn't put him on punt returns. Then they get forced to do it, and then he returns one for a touchdown. Every game they come in here, it's got to be, okay, this guy's our most explosive playmaker. We're getting him the football. We've lamented the issues with getting Miles Sanders the ball. Well, now they've got Hurts at quarterback. We have it, at least we have an idea. And by the way, do you hear what Miles Sanders said? He basically gave it away. He said, hey, I should do better because I know we're going to run, whether he said zone read or RPOs. So hopefully it all works. He did.
I know Trey loves that.
It always sounds great Monday through Thursday, doesn't it?
they just give away so much, man. Just be quiet. Just players, just be quiet. I know as media and as fans, you love it, but my gosh, they just give away too much in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Just to play off the Reagor point, let's keep one thing in mind here. It might seem funny now, but the playbook that Doug Pederson has is the same playbook that Andy Reid has for the most part. Okay, now I'm sure there's some differences here and there, but for the most part, it's the same, okay? So we know Reagor is not quite Tyreek Hill at this point in his career. You know, we know that he's not that guy. But theoretically, he's that guy in the Eagles offense, theoretically. So use him that way. When you watch the Chiefs, Hill is used, he lines up all over the formation. He's used with a lot of motions, a lot of shifts. You know, that's what you need to do. You know, and that's how you get a guy involved. You don't just line him up in one spot and say, okay, we're just going to throw it to him, because when you line him up in one spot, there's limited route concepts
Scheme to
that
get him
come
open.
from
How many
one
times have we
spot.
said that?
Sure.
Right.
Hey, I remember, I think it was either 2 years ago or one of their running backs got hurt. It might have been when they had Kareem Hunt, and they used Tyreek Hill frequently as a guy in the backfield.
They offset him in the backfield.
Yeah.
So
there's ways to get him the ball. Like,
so
you don't
Greg-
have to make it happen naturally. I mean, you can put it in his hands.
So off that, what Jeff is talking about, Greg, What do you see from tape study? How are they lining them up and how are they deploying them each week?
Well, for the most part, they're just kind of lining them up. They're not doing what.
That's not what we need.
What I suggest, and again, coaches work their tails off. I'm not here to sit here and say this is what they should do, and then boy, I'm really smart and I'm smarter than they are. All I do is watch tape, and I see what teams do, and I see that there's only probably 3 basic offensive philosophies that permeate the NFL. Now, teams that have these philosophies, do they tweak, do they add? Sure, coaches do that all the time. But there's really, when you're talking about methodology and playbooks, there's 3 basic philosophies. So the Doug Pederson playbook comes right down the evolutionary scale. Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, Doug Peterson. It's the same. And Trey, you spent time with Andy. So he was your coach, but you also were out there as a coach. Yeah. So you saw it differently, right? So it's down the evolutionary scale. Now, so all this stuff is in the playbook. Now you have to then tweak it and try to do things off of that, but it's there.
Right.
Playbooks are not 4 pages. Trey knows this. They're not. I've been fortunate in my career to be able to sit in with coaches in meetings when they install stuff, and man, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, to echo what you said about Andy's playbook, I have a friend who was a pro scout for 3 different NFL teams. He watched some of the tape of last week's game, and he said to me specifically, I'll paraphrase, but he said, those go routes that I mentioned, all the verticals, that's a staple of Andy Reid's playbook, as you mentioned, Greg. The one thing that stood out to him, though, in what was going on with the Eagles' offense is he said to do that without a lot of motion, without a lot of movement, and when you have an offensive line that is struggling to protect, was baffling. He said that's baffling to me.
Right.
That he's surprised that they would try to execute these style of plays without any eye candy going on, and when your offensive line is struggling. So it kind of goes back to what we've talked about all year. But what kind of adjustments are you making, and is stubbornness creeping into not only, we talked about defensive ends, they get stubborn with what they do. Coaches often don't second guess what they do in their process.
I wonder if they don't use some of this motion and all of that, just because how bad this offensive line is. Because now if you send a guy from the right to the left and then the defense adjusts, that might change how the protection is. So that might, you might want to, we're just going to line up and play, just because I know that I don't have the guys that's going to have the mindset to make the right calls and get everybody in the right position. Because sometimes you just got to know what you're dealing with out there. And you got to have a center that's going to be able to switch some of those calls. And a lot of times when Kelsey makes a call, that's it.
Right.
There is no changing it. So that's probably why you don't see a lot of the window dressing with this offense.
Getting back to Rager really quickly, I wanted to ask you, because people are bringing it up to Adam and I a lot. Do you see anything with his route running that you find problematic or not typical of rookies? Is he struggling in the route precision department?
I mean, I think he needs improvement in that area for sure. And again, now we get into it, and you get into the coaching element as well. And I'm not ripping the coach, because I don't know what's taught and how it's taught, what the player accepts.
Right.
But all I know from the tape is that I think that Rager needs a little work in terms of top of his route stem, being able to separate and win.
And what did you like on that route that he had to beat Kevin King? He's a pretty tall quarterback. What did you like on
I
last
love that
week?
route. See, there was an example. Now that was a straight, that was a fade ball.
Right.
But what I loved about that play was King was in press, and he ended up playing more mirror match press as opposed to physical jam press. But I loved the way Rager, who's a strong kid, by the way, used his inside arm to shove King a little bit, and that created the needed separation. And what he did do on that one, which he didn't do earlier in the year on a route that I remember, is he did try to stack them. And what I mean by that is, when you win to the outside, when you're in a plus split, when you're in a wide split as a wide receiver against a press corner, and you choose to win by going outside, you have to then lean back inside. That's what's called stacking the corner, because otherwise you give the quarterback no room to throw the football to the outside. And I thought he did a good job on that play. So he's shown flashes. It's just more consistency and more teaching.
Right. What's happened to Travis Fulgham? Is he just a byproduct of the offense itself not being functional, or are you seeing something from him where he's just not as invested?
Well, you see Alshon Jeffrey, first of all,
taking a lot of snaps from him.
Don't get me started.
And then when you set the world on fire, defenses start adjusting to how you play. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this whole Alshon Jeffrey thing has thrown off his focus a little bit, because you've seen him drop passes. So I'm not sure, is he the type of player that needs to actually always be out there, or I'm not sure what the situation was, because you had a ball right there, hit him in his face mask.
Right.
And come on, you got to have that.
Mm-hmm. Look, there was a reason why the Lions cut him twice. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do with talent. I just think that it wasn't working there the way I understand it, and they moved on, and I'm sure they noticed how great he was doing for the Eagles. But when you see a guy completely drop off, Jeff, like this, you got to ask, what is going on here? This is yet another player who's flashed, then disappears.
I would answer that this way, without knowing. I'm not studying Fulgham on every snap, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what exactly is going on with him personally. But there's one thing that's very evident watching the Eagles pass game. There's no rhythm, there's no timing, there's no true identity. Mm-hmm. There's nothing they do every week where you say, we know this is going to happen with the Eagles pass game every week. Right. And I think when that happens, receivers tend to kind of flow in and out. 1 week maybe one guy catches 6 balls, and the next week he's targeted 3 times. And for fantasy people, as Adam well knows, that drives them nuts. Mm-hmm. But the Eagles offense does not have an identity where hey, this is going to happen.
When they were on a roll, a semi-roll, the Pittsburgh game was the game where Fulgham went off against a great defense. What did you see from their pass game in the middle of the season when they were starting to actually throw the ball?
The pass game was a little better then. It was never quite consistent, but there were moments. The problem over the last 2-3 weeks, and the reason why Carson Wentz has been benched, is those moments have disappeared. Yeah. So there was never any consistency, but there were moments.
Ertz wasn't in that game, was he?
Which game?
In the Pittsburgh game.
Did he get hurt in the Baltimore game?
He got hurt in the Baltimore game, so he was out against Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, so now you get both tight ends out of the game. So now that makes Wentz have to find those other receivers. Yeah. But now you get Ertz and Dallas back in the game at the same time. Whose targets go up? Both of them, and the receivers, outside receivers, their targets drop drastically.
Is today an 11 personnel type of day or a 12 personnel type of day?
I think you're going to see a lot of 12. You're going to see both tight ends out there. Now the thing that is kind of wild is just how much, you see Ertz come back, but then, now you have Dick Rogers. He's not out there. He's not getting, his reps have been cut down drastically. So, and he's one that, has been pretty solid for you as a tight end, catching some balls, but now he's back down in the dumps. So, you see this out of this team a lot.
And if they play 12, the Saints will play nickel, and they'll say, if you want to run the ball, have at it. We're pretty good stopping the run. Yes. And if you want to hand the ball off and take 12 or 13 plays to try to beat us, have at it.
Something Adam and I have questioned a lot and wonder and wanted your guys' opinion on it. We talked about Miles Sanders in the running game, but at the beginning of the year, it looked like there was an attempt to get Miles Sanders involved in the passing game. If you remember the Bengals game, they lined him up against the linebacker, the rookie linebacker.
Would have been a touchdown.
Carson missed him.
I think it was Akeem Davis-Gaither. They had the exact, he ran.
And they ran it again about a couple of plays later. That time Gaither got it, was able to at least cover it. But this is an area, he had 50 catches last year. What does he have, 18? Or this year?
Well, that's all part of there's no rhythm to the pass game.
I guess theoretically, Trey, I'd ask, if you're a coach, right, you put your coach hat on, and you've got a young, dynamic player in Miles Sanders who you can, and you've already shown, can line up a little bit and catch the ball. And then you have an aging receiver who in Alshon Jeffrey, who's battled injuries and does not look particularly explosive out there, but is playing half the game. How does that make sense in any form of I guess I'll ask this: what are they trying to accomplish in your mind by getting Alshon Jeffrey out there, but not throwing the ball to a guy like Miles Sanders?
Justifying the contracts.
Oh, come on, please.
That's what they're doing.
I was hoping he wouldn't say that.
Yeah, but that's what it is.
It's hard to say it's not.
Yeah, when you're saying that, all right, you got to pay this man $16 million for the season. You know what? We need you to at least break a sweat.
Can you see the inconsistency of sitting your $25 million quarterback for your rookie, but not doing that for your aging wide receiver because he's making money?
You know what? Carson's giving you 12 games so far.
So we have to see more.
Like, look, hey man, we got to get something out of you, and that's what they're doing. That's even why they were starting JP out there over some of these offensive linemen, because all right, we're paying you all this money. Hey, get out there and go get it. Mm-hmm. Even with Ertz, you get Ertz back. Rodgers has been playing well. Why all of a sudden Rodgers gets put on the bench? Because Hurts is back out there. So, you got to justify why you had these guys out there. Hey, let's go ahead and have at it.
I can understand Hurts a little bit only
I can
because...
see, that's a little bit more,
But I get your point.
But he only had, what, 1 or 2 targets in this game?
Correct. Yeah. I kind of expected a little bit of a slow comeback from him. He did catch a nice pass from Hurts. I think it was a 3rd and long, and he caught a nice little pass in the zone there. So maybe we'll see a little bit more from Zach Ertz today. But I'm glad you say that because I know you say that with skepticism. It's not that you endorse that, but that's just the business of the NFL.
Yeah, that's just it's what it is. He's the money man, so he's going to get the reps.
Someone's got to step in, I feel, and say it's okay. Play the guys who are playing best. You would think that's
and
obvious to head
again,
coaches.
we've said with Jeffrey, we know he and Deshaun Jackson won't be with the team next season. So start turning the page. I understand they're still in the playoff race. I get that they've been eliminated yet, but start playing the guys who you think will be contributing to next year's offense. And we thought, and we'll see if it may not happen, we thought Fulgham was their X for future years. Mm-hmm. And Rager's their Z. It looked perfect. You got a big guy at X in Fulgham who looks like he has a chance to be terrific. Then he completely disappears. Rager now looks like he's got a chance to be a good Z.
Well, you talk about wanting to get your new starting quarterback comfortable, and you have to think that the most passes and reps that he had going back to the limited training camp that they did have was to Fulgham, because Fulgham was not a starter until week 4 or 5. It was probably to John Hightower. So you would probably want John Hightower out there a little bit more. You'd probably want your younger players that he already has established a rapport with.
As a scout teamer?
Yeah, because he's
throwing
to him.
interceptions. He ain't,
What happened?
He's out there throwing interceptions.
Camp he was working with these guys.
You mean like
not
the predetermined interceptions? Yeah. Do they still do that? I remember in watching practice, they used to have to have guys on the scout team throw the ball up because they were simulating certain plays.
Yeah, because you don't want a quarterback to come out there. You want everybody, when you come out of practice, you want everybody feeling positive.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to go in there like, man, we just got lit up in practice all week. What are we going to do?
Right.
Hey, Adam, not that he's the answer, but is Goodwin, what kind of contract did he sign?
He signed a 1 year. He opted out.
So he's a free agent after this year?
No, his contract with Tull. His contract with Tull.
So is he an Eagle next year?
Actually, I have to look that up exactly how they're going to handle that, because if he took the $100,000, you get a $150,000 as a stipend if you opt out. It's been so many months. It's a good question because he could flat out fly.
It was. I thought he. We have to look that up because I thought that if he took the money, then.
I'm not saying
then that means
he's not a volume target. I'm not saying that if he was an Eagle next year, he's going to catch 90 balls.
Right.
But I mean, he does. He's a target. He can
what
run.
did you think of Hightower this year in the limited time that you saw from him?
I think he's got a lot to learn.
In terms of?
Route running, understanding how to separate, understanding how to come back to the ball. He does not come back to the football.
Mm-hmm. Which is a big thing at receiver.
Especially in this offense. You see a lot of those deep comebacks, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, he's a rookie, and again,
he's a rookie. I'm not judging his whole career.
No, I know. I'm just giving the context.
He was a 5th-round pick.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was not a first-round pick.
Right.
Another player who needs a full offseason.
Yeah,
Let's hope we have one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Real quick, because we haven't mentioned his name a lot, but I do want to talk about it because I feel like he's being used a little bit differently for New Orleans, and that's Alvin Kamara, right? He's used to being a dual threat weapon, catching a lot of passes.
Since Taysom Hill took over, Kamara's pass targets are way down. He's only getting a couple per game. There's no way to predict that. There's no way you would know, but they're really not checking down to him. Or, Greg, are they running routes for him as much, or are you just not getting the ball? Like, have you noticed anything with Kamara?
I haven't noticed anything specific, but clearly he hasn't been targeted as a number one option. Let's put it that way. But you can't go into this game assuming that's not going to happen.
And Michael Thomas, people talk about not the fastest guy in the world, but all he does is dominate. What is so good about him?
First of all, he's terrific off the line of scrimmage. He's a really good route runner. He knows how to use his vertical stem to win to win against leverage. To understand if the corner is playing off coverage, he knows how to defeat the corner's positioning. That's what it means to win against leverage. And he's very physical against man coverage, and he's very competitive. And he's big. I mean, that's the thing. He's a big receiver. He's about 6'2", 215.
Right.
And but they also are so good with their design. He runs a lot of crossing routes. And again, zone, he catches the ball in voids. And he's a guy that has really good play speed. See, we talk about 40 times. Mm-hmm. He ran a 4.57 or a 4.58. but he has really good play speed. He can run away from man coverage on crossers.
How do you play him in this scheme? How would you handle him?
Do you put Slay on him? And
You're going to have to put Slay on.
You're going to have to,
yeah.
You're not putting Avonte Maddox on
No,
him.
it's too small.
Not putting Jalen on him.
No.
I mean,
they have to if they're
So
any
would you go
injuries.
Slay, Trey?
I mean,
Got it,
that's
right?
the only thing you're going to have to do.
Unless you decide to play less man and more zone.
Yeah, you might have to try to go a little bit more zone, but, you know. And then with Slay having a bad will, yeah, this is going to be a challenge, you know.
How much have teams tried? And again, the Denver game we wiped out.
And by the way,
right?
Emmanuel Sanders is a pretty good player too.
I've heard of him. He's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good. Yeah. And of course, their tight end can stretch the field.
Yes.
Jared Cook could still run.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and I'm going to throw the Denver game out. So it's really just 2 Atlanta Falcons games that
Yep.
we have. How much did they try to pressure Taysom Hill?
Not a ton.
Not a ton. huh?
No, not a ton.
I mean, Jim is not a big pressure guy,
No.
but he will bring it when he senses opportunities
Yeah.
here. If he feels
It'll be situation based. I mean, Jim's not going to just blitz on 1st and 10.
Right.
You know, he won't do that. Now, every once in a while, he does start. Depending on the game, you'll see him go cover 0. You know, the game dictates how much he's going to attack.
Right. I also am curious in what you've seen. I mean, if the Eagles try to do a takeout of Michael Thomas, where it's a corner and a bracket coverage,
They might do some of that.
Does Taysom, is he good at finding everybody else on the field? I mean, have you seen him kind of be a
He did that a little better last week, you know, but
Okay.
he's young.
Right.
He's inexperienced. He's not young. He's inexperienced.
Okay. All right.
And then when it comes to our pressure packages, I mean, it's when you see it, you see it. It's not something that's going to catch you off guard as an offense. I mean, you'll see, you know, it's
Still be prepared.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty standard. It's nothing that's going to wow you or make you like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Right. Yeah, Michael Thomas, I know he has victimized the
He's
Eagles
really
in the
good.
past.
He's a really good receiver.
And the reason why Kamara has not caught the ball lately is because he's on my fantasy team.
That's
And
what it
everything
is.
has gone wrong for my fantasy team this year, so that was just the icing on the cake.
Who are the inactives there, Adam?
Yeah,
no,
we have
remember the
them.
game?
Oh, it's a late game.
Yeah, I
forgot.
know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was looking. I was like, wait a minute. It's the
Yeah,
late
that's right.
game.
I totally forgot.
Those inactives won't be out until about 2:50.
Yeah, I totally
2:55.
forgot, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
For this game.
But we still, again, wanted to do this in the morning so you can enjoy your
Oh,
1
yeah.
o'clock
So-
football.
exactly
and,
right.
We'll get into the score in a minute. Our predictions. First, I want to tell everybody, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is wishing you the happiest of holidays. And to kick off the season of giving, DraftKings has new promotions and odd boosts every day this week. Luckily for us sports fans, there's an abundance of action taking place this week. Football teams are in the hunt to secure their place in the playoffs, while college basketball season is just getting underway, and there's no better place to get in on all of the action. If you haven't tried DraftKings Sportsbook yet, head to the App Store now because you don't want to miss this. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new players the chance to earn a sign-up bonus up to $1,000 when signing up using promo code ITB. DraftKings Sportsbook has endless ways for you to bet, from live betting to betting on your favorite players. They do it all. DraftKings is safe, reliable, and secure, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code ITB when you sign up and get up to $1,000. That's code ITB to get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for more details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
One thing.
Yes, sir.
There are 6 spots left for a fantasy contest.
Oh,
What's
get
it?
in
$3?
now.
$3?
$5.
$5.
Inflation.
Yeah. Only 6 spots left. You got? Do we cut it off at 1 o'clock, or do we let it keep going?
I'll let whoever handles that
All
handle
right.
that.
But
It's not
anyway,
my
there's 6
decision.
spots left. So go sign up. The links are on Twitter.
Look, I submitted my lineup 2 days ago, so I'm set.
There you
whenever
go. So am I.
Whenever
So am I.
anybody wants to submit, and I got a good feeling about this week.
All right.
Although I did say that the last 2 weeks.
There you go.
All right, let's head over to DraftKings right now and check out what the line is. And it's been amazing this year how often not only have the Eagles been underdogs, but home underdogs, which is difficult to be in the NFL. Last I checked, the Eagles were 6.5-point dogs to the New Orleans Saints at home today. And a quick scan, it is now up to 7.5. So Eagles projected by Vegas to lose by more than a touchdown. The over-under number on this game is 42.5. Man, that is a
It is low,
that
but
is a
it's
low number, but
you know,
understandable, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Every week I'm thinking. By the way, when's the last time the Eagles scored over 20?
Let's see. That's a great point.
I mean,
the Ravens?
The Steelers,
The
right?
Steelers, yeah.
Are you serious? Oh my, that's like 2 months ago.
Well, they lost to the Giants 27-21. No, maybe it was 17. You're right. I think
Yeah.
it's
So look, how could you pick them to score 20? The Eagles' defense has improved.
new quarterback.
We hope. Look, we've all outlined kind of what we expect to see, and sometimes you don't get what you expect to see, for good and bad. But to me, Jeff, this is a low-scoring game. I think they've got it right. I think it's in the low 40s.
Well, why don't you start it off with your prediction, Adam?
Matter of fact, I got it lower than 40. I've got it Eagles 13, Saints 23. Another low-scoring game for the Eagles. We've all outlined how great the Saints defense is, and that would make it 36 points.
By the way, you and Greg are tied for second place in our pick'em here because Trey is 7-5. You are above 500, Trey. That's
Wow.
7-5.
That's hard to do.
Adam and Greg are 6-6. I am 5-7.
Well, you, Mr. Contrarian, I have a feeling you're going to do it again. Am I right?
We might see.
All right.
I want to get Greg's pick first.
I know I picked the Saints, Jeff, but, you know,
You did.
I forget
Need
what.
a reminder?
Yeah.
A little refresher. Okay.
27-17 maybe?
27-17. That's correct. You
So
have
I'm
the
right
Saints
at the
winning.
number, 44.
Yeah, you're on the over side of a 42.5 there.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to Greg, like a lot of people do, you take the Saints to cover and the over. Trey Thomas, you're not going to make a lot of people happy with this prediction.
I mean, I'm sorry.
This is, by the way, the first time you
boy.
actually gave a scored, I believe, prediction.
I cannot lie. I cannot lie to the people anymore, you know, because I'd be like, oh, yeah, we're going to win. We're going to win. And then I go in and I place my bet. And I'm like, yeah, we're not winning.
Yeah,
this
you
game.
can't be doing
So,
that.
yeah, so now I'm not lying to you. But I think we're going to lose this. What did I say, 24-3?
You
Wow,
said
low score.
24-3.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, I think we get a drive and we kick a field goal. Jake Elliott will actually make one. And,
Wait, is he going to make? Oh, he's going to make
He's
it.
going to
Okay.
actually make it. And, you know.
And that'll be it, huh?
Yeah, that'll be it. Yeah.
In
All
your
right.
scenario, he cannot miss an extra point because the Eagles don't have that opportunity. So that's
There you
always
go.
a good.
That is
that's
true.
the bright side.
What did it open up at in terms of the line and
I think it was
over-under?
6.5 earlier this week.
What did the over-under start at?
I have written down here 49.5, but I think that might
can't
be
be right.
incorrect.
Yeah, that's
I
really
think that's
high.
incorrect. It's almost like as the week went on, they're like, nah, this thing is
42.5 is really low, right? By today's
Yeah,
standards.
especially with the record-setting scoring going on in the
Yeah,
NFL.
that's
this
correct.
week.
But, I mean,
Tells you where the Eagles are.
we haven't scored well, so they're like, well, yeah, we keep that at around 42.
To answer your question, Trey, they did, well, this is a little unfair. They beat the Cowboys 23-9 before the bye week. However, they only scored 15 offensive points in that
Yeah.
game.
I mean,
So you'd have to go back to when they beat the Giants 22-21 in Week 7 for them to have scored 22 offense. I believe that all those points were. Did the
And those are
Giants
the-
take a safety that game?
That was the two drives, you know, beginning at the 6-minute mark.
Right.
Right.
Carson Wentz in the fourth quarter
Right.
heroics. Boston
Boston
Scott
Scott,
touchdown.
yep.
God, that seems like 10 years ago at this point. Dallas game is their last win.
The Ben DiNucci game.
The
Yeah,
Ben
oh,
DiNucci
yeah.
game.
Danucci.
Now, I think it's fair to wonder, they win that game 23-9. They only score 15 points. If the other guy had started, not Dalton, the guy they wind up starting the next week, Garrett Gilbert.
Garrett Gilbert.
Garrett
Yeah,
Gilbert.
okay, yeah.
If he had started that game, I
would've let him
wonder if
up.
the Eagles would win it.
Right.
He was far more competent than Ben DiNucci.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. I am going to be the contrarian, and not just to be the contrarian, but I believe the Eagles defense is ready to play a very good game today. I do think Taysom Hill has not necessarily been tested because of that Denver game and then 2 Atlanta games. Atlanta is not a very good team, and then defensively they haven't been very good all year. So I do think the Eagles defense will show up. I think they're going to create a turnover, and I think the Eagles are also going to get a score on a trick play today.
Oh, man.
I think Doug's
Well,
going to
I
reach
think
the
I'll
bag
go
for
for
it.
it. All right. I think
What's
they're
a
gonna
trick
run.
play?
You'll know it when you see
I
it.
mean, what do you define a trick play? Reverse? I mean,
like
what-
maybe a wide receiver option.
And I think they're going to run something
touchdown.
like that for
what,
sure.
another Philly?
Maybe. The losey-losey. That's what they've been doing. They need to switch it up. So I do think that they call
All right.
something interesting, and I think it'll be the difference. And the Eagles will win 23-21
Wow.
today. And I say that so confidently because I know none of you guys will question me on it next week.
That would be the
And by
call
the way-
of the week. If they win, that'd be a
And
great
by the way,
call.
as Adam said to start, you know, I have no real idea. I mean, I went by chalk, basically.
Yeah.
But I have no real idea what's going to happen today with Jalen Hurts.
Because that's the beauty of it. No one really knows. We think we may get,
Yeah.
from a schematic standpoint, okay.
Right.
You go back what we saw at Oklahoma.
And evaluations and track record, you get a sense. But
He ran the ball 16 times per game last season. That doesn't mean they won't come out at times
Yeah.
throwing the football.
Yeah.
'Cause he's got an arm. I saw this at training camp. If you protect him, we know he can move. Let's see what happens. He made some plays last week. Let's see what happens.
That's why they played a game.
Beautiful
All right,
day, by the way.
Real
Yep,
quick,
beautiful day.
do you have a fantasy standout? for
Jared
today's
Cook,
game?
it's
Jared
money
Cook.
against the Eagles. Every other week they give up a touchdown. You saw last week Tunyon, he scored. Alex Singleton didn't go the right way. Jared Cook could still run. Right, those seam passes, man, right down the middle, touchdown.
What is now the touchdown total against the Eagles by a tight end this year?
Oh,
yeah, 3 from Higbee, 1 from Logan Thomas, 1 from Tunyon. I think there was one other one in there. Mark Andrews have one?
No,
he did
we were
not
surprised.
actually
He was
have
my
one.
man of the game that week. No.
That's right,
no.
but I'm sure if
But
I look
he
hard
can
enough.
still run. Look, he's been around a long time, Jared Cook.
He sure has. He's had a good career.
Very good career.
That's right. And by the way, Austin Hooper should have had one against
Yes.
in that Cleveland
Right
game.
here, and
Baker
threw
just
it over his head.
Threw it
Yes,
over
correct.
his head. All right, big thanks to everybody watching. Thanks to DraftKings. Thanks to Manscaped. Our friends at Rebel Hill Productions, give them a call. Big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. Of course, Leverage Studios. Everybody for watching and all those who left us questions and comments. We will be back next week, same time as we get ready to dissect yet another Eagles game, that one against the Arizona Cardinals. Enjoy your 1 o'clock games. Have fun, everybody. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast when you can.